recording.
Okay, good. Hey everybody, the day has finally come. It's the episode of the Basement Vagrants you've all been waiting for and that I have been dreading. This is our Picard Season 2 episode where I will regale you all with the story of how I learned to hate life and seek the cold void of death. And speaking of cold void of death, we have the cold-hearted bugs.
You know, the fact that you've gotten through 2 episodes and haven't killed yourself yet is pretty impressive.
Well, the show isn't over yet. Maybe I'm saving that for the big finale.
Oh,
you don't know. And Schweitzer, of course, is with us as well.
I think this episode is going to put the gay in regale.
So if you don't like Star Trek, you probably skip this one because we're going to be talking about episode 1 and 2 of Picard Season 2. And then, if you'll remember from last week's episode, we spun the wheel of Trek and we landed with the episode of Deep Space Nine from Season 3 called Defiant. So we're going to talk about that. Schweitzer will take us through that episode to give my voice a little bit of a break because I've got 2 episodes to take you through piece by piece. I felt like the only way to truly bring you into this show without watching it is to go through it basically scene by scene, everything that happens. And trust me, simultaneously, a lot happens in Picard Season 2 and a lot doesn't happen because it's so plot heavy. Almost all of my notes are just Picard does this, 7 of 9 says this, they do this. It's just so much plot, and there's very little. I'll just spoil this quickly. There's one scene in these 2 episodes that I like, and it was when 2 characters are sitting down having meaningful dialogue. It only lasts about 1 minute. It's the only thing I like because it's actually introspection of character, not just we have to go to the place and shoot the guy because this is happening. Anyway.
So we left off Season 1. We had Picard in an android body for some reason, but it's exactly the same as his old body.
Yeah.
We had Dr. Murderer,
Murderer.
drunken pilot,
Yeah.
Space junkie with a kid,
Yeah.
angry lesbian 7 of 9,
Mm-hmm.
and Space Samurai.
Space Samurai, yes, that's our gang of heroes.
But none of them are in trouble for anything that they did last. Oh, and android girl, Soji.
Soji,
whatever her name was. Okay.
What about Agnes?
That's Dr. Murderer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's just like the murderer has a name. Her name is Agnes. Her name's Lamb. Lamb of God.
Who slaughters the shepherd.
Yeah, that's right. This lamb fights back.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start off with Season 1. The episode opens with a group of nameless Starfleet crew members desperately running to the bridge of a ship during a red alert. They rush onto the bridge, firing their guns wildly before they even know what the threat is.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because we'll find this is a scene that takes place later, but they're showing it as also opening the show for some reason, like a Pulp Fiction messing with the timeline thing. And we'll find out later that the security team was only told that to report to the bridge. Spoiler alert, Rio says security team to the bridge, and then a group of 10 Starfleet cadets run onto the bridge and immediately start shooting wildly. So you very, very Starfleet behavior there.
Was there like black people on the bridge or something?
Raffi was there.
So that's probably why.
Yeah, probably. They said hands up, don't shoot.
Defund Starfleet.
Also, I just made a note, the guns behave more like Romulan disruptors than phasers, but whatever, nothing matters.
Right.
Agnes and Picard are on the bridge, and a woman with tentacles and dominatrix gear says Picard's name, and he turns to look at her, and then the credits roll. That's the cold open. I wrote here, credits roll. They're very long, which thankfully decreased the runtime of the actual show. So that's a silver lining.
Okay.
We open on the Picard Vineyard, where Time Is on My Side by Irma Thomas plays. Picard strolling around, looking like Lenny from Mice and Men. Picard, okay, this is the first thing that pissed me off. I'll just say now, in my notes, I bolded things that pissed me off and underlined things I like. There's a lot of bold and not a lot of underlining. So.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Does Time Is on My Side is something Picard is listening to or just plays?
It's just playing.
Oh, why do they?
I don't get that. It's just something about that's been going on for the last 20 years. It's just like, for whatever reason, we have to have a song playing because, that way at the end you can say, tonight's soundtrack featured by, like, this is a
Star
shit.
Trek, damn it.
No,
I know.
Oh, spoiler alert, none of this is Star Trek.
Yeah.
So just put that thought out of your head.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And the first thing that pissed me off, it's a minor thing, but it's just plain stupid. There's so much in this that's just plain stupid. Picard picks up a bottle of Chateau Picard wine and looks at it, and the bottle instantly replicates a label from what I guess is like a small replicator on the bottle. So every bottle of wine has its own personal replicator that replicates a label onto it. Because that's not incredibly wasteful or stupid at all.
Right.
Oh my.
I'm guessing since maybe they thought this is Star Trek, so we need to have a technological thing to show you what's in the future. Oh my God, bottles have replicating labels. It's like, why? Just have one replicator replicate 1 million labels and then stick them on.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. I can't believe how stupid it is. So that's kind of our setup for what's going on here. Later on, it cuts pretty much immediately to later on where Picard is sharing a glass of wine with his Romulan housekeeper, who I still can't remember her name. He makes a toast and says, "Cheers, big ears." Which is
he did not say that.
Which is not something Picard would say.
He seriously said that in the show.
He says, "Cheers, big ears."
Wait a minute. Because it had been established in another episode that like referring to the Romulans by their ears is almost kind of like an ethnic slur. Like Garrick, Garrick. I remember like Garrick said it in one episode, "Our pointed-eared friends," and somebody said, "Now look at that. He makes an ethnic slur and expects me not to respond." It's like, if he were to if Picard were to go to God in, "Cheers, darky,"
or calling a Kardashian spoonhead.
Yes,
it didn't bother me that much because it's these two. They know each other. They're friends. They're close. It's like how you might rib your buddies.
Right. It's just such a dumb thing to say for Star Trek. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And Picard.
Yes.
They toast again and say to Joban, her husband, who I guess died in season 1 or off screen. I never finished season 1, so I don't remember.
No.
But they toast him or whatever. Also, and this will come into play fairly soon, where there's really no clear answer as to how long after season 1 this takes place. Mm-hmm. Just by the general feeling I get, I would say like maybe a few months. I don't know. It doesn't say, but it feels like maybe a few months. They talk about their marriage, and the woman says that Romulans have arranged marriages from childhood. I don't know if this is canon or not, but it does kind of sound like something Romulans might do. So
sure,
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I'll roll with it.
This is something I bolded. She says, "When I first came to work here, I saw you as a man who chose the stars, but now I come to wonder if you're seeking or running." I just wrote this down because I hate this kind of like faux deep dialogue,
right?
Where it's like you can tell the writer was so proud of himself for writing that because they're just, oh my God, that's so deep, that's so introspective. It's like, no, it's not really. And anyone who knows anything about Picard knows that he's fascinated with new cultures, exploration, research, creating peace, learning about other people. He's not running.
No.
Anyone who actually knows Star Trek knows that questions like, are you seeking or what are you running from? It's like, no, he's an explorer. He likes learning about new cultures.
Diehard archaeologist. Yeah. He's always constantly looking for things.
But this is just, you can tell that this is like a fart sniffing by the writers. They love shit like that, this faux deep garbage, but it's really a stupid question. And I have this underlined, so I guess I liked this. She then asks him why he chooses to be alone, and this is actually a much better question since Picard's aversion to commitment is actually an aspect that I wouldn't mind exploring. He responds and says that part of him that wants is the part that has to wait behind duty, which I thought was a pretty good way of explaining Picard. Like, he's never, because he has had relationships, but it's always took a seat behind his duty to Starfleet and to his crew. And I think it's a good line. It's not really a great answer, but you could say Picard is dodging the question.
Yeah. So
I kind of like that. And that's one aspect of Picard's character I wouldn't mind exploring is his, he's lonely. It's clear that he's lonely in his old age, and it's like his regret that he put his career and his duty before his own personal happiness. But now that his duty's done, he has nothing.
Well, in theory, it's probably been done for a good 30 years. So
exactly. And there's this whole scene between him drinking wine with his Romulan housemate. There's a little romantic tension between them. They go for a kiss at the end, and then Picard pulls away. Picard pulls away, not her. She has feelings towards him, and he has them towards her, but he's still reluctant. He still can't commit to that.
Dude, you're 100-year-old and you're an android now. What the fuck are you holding out for? I don't want to spoil the friendship? Jesus fuck.
But that's one aspect I would like to explore about Picard, but and I don't want to judge the whole series, the whole season, but that's never really brought up again very much until later in the episode, and then it's not brought up again at all in season 2. So I would be totally happy with if Picard didn't go on any new space adventure. If it was just him trying to fall in love or working with his personal feelings, like something more introspective instead of we got to go shoot the guys that are blowing up the universe.
Right. Picard goes on Space Bachelor. He has to pick from one of 30 different alien wives.
Yeah. The Romulan lady's like, have you ever heard of Tinder? After a romantic almost kiss, we're thrust into a flashback to Picard's childhood, where young boy Picard is talking to his mother about mundane things. She tells him to look up, which is supposed to be profound, I guess, but I rolled my eyes so fast they almost broke the warp 10 barrier and turned into lizards. That's what I did.
Are we going down the route where Picard has an edible complex or something? Is that where we're going with this?
They set up this thing with his mother. You'll talk about it again in a little bit, where his mother, I don't know if she disappeared or she abandoned him or whatever. But I don't. Did you watch the Red Letter Media review of the episode?
Yeah.
There's speculation and by Rich, and I don't know what to think about it, that Picard's mother and the Borg Queen might be the same person, or they might be related, or maybe he looks at the Borg Queen as a mother figure. I don't know. They're definitely setting up some kind of, I don't want to say edible complex, but some sort of thing with his mother. Whatever.
Yeah.
The next day, Picard gives a speech at Starfleet Academy to the graduating class, who, and I noticed this, it may be a minor nitpick, but it was really weird. They showed this shot of Starfleet Academy, the graduating class. There's hundreds of people in this gigantic auditorium. And it's a shot where it's from way back. You see Picard in the distance, and you see people all around. And in the foreground, where it's clear that it's real actors, there's all one seat in between each of them, like they're all socially distanced. But in the back, where it's obviously CGI people, they're all crowded together. So it's I know some of this was filmed during COVID, so, okay, you had to have them socially distanced, even though, sitting one seat apart is not that distant, and nobody was wearing masks, so who the fuck cares? But, and I assume anybody acting on this high-budget CBS, Paramount, whatever show is tested before they're on set. But it's clear that it was filmed and half of the Starfleet Academy graduating class was socially distant. And it was very weird. Especially since only half if you're going to do that, why don't you CGI in other people in those empty seats? It just
we're not going to, even in the 24th century, we're not getting rid of COVID. God damn.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they actually know who Picard is now? Because they acted like nobody knew him in the first season.
Oh, no.
Yes, I remember that.
He's I'll mention it later, but it turns out he's been named the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy, the head
That's
guy.
A thing? Oh.
I don't know. I can't remember the word. I don't remember if it's
Commandant?
Chancellor. The Commandant.
Because he stopped the giant android tentacle monster?
I don't know. It's not explained.
Okay.
And then the stupidest thing ever happens where during Picard's speech, Picard says he wants to single out one graduating member above all the others, and he says, Eleanor, please stand up. So apparently in the months that between season 1 and season 2, Eleanor not only got into but graduated Starfleet Academy.
Isn't that a 4-year plan? How did he even pass all the tests to get in and the psychological?
Right. Remember how hard it was for Wesley Crusher to get into the Academy?
Yeah.
And he was a child genius who lived on a starship. Eleanor... Go ahead.
Like Nog had to get sponsored by Cisco because the Ferenginar wasn't a part of the Federation. I know for a fact if you aren't a part of the Federation, you have to be sponsored by a officer who is part of the command level. So chances are he may have been sponsored by Picard, maybe, but it's like, but wasn't Picard done with Starfleet? So
the most generous thing I could say is that maybe Picard like pulled some strings to get Eleanor into the Academy, but that would also betray the fact that Picard put so much stock and reverence into Starfleet Academy. Like he wouldn't do that for Wesley.
No.
Picard would, like he sponsored Wesley, but he didn't say like, oh, I'll pull some strings behind the scenes to get you in, kid. No, Wesley had to get in on his own merits. So like that would, if that's true, that would completely betray the character of Picard.
Now again, where if they had done, like I said in the first season, and addressed the fallout of the Dominion War and said maybe we had to change things up a bit because we lost a lot of people, a lot of good Starfleet people, and it took over a generation to regenerate Starfleet, then you could argue, okay, they had to relax the qualifications, he could get in.
You can also say that after this, with all the bad blood between Starfleet and the Romulans after they failed to help them, evacuate their planet, maybe they wanted to build some goodwill by allowing a Romulan into Starfleet Academy. But still, the fact that he was admitted and then... So, I don't know exactly how long it takes to graduate Starfleet Academy. I'm guessing it's more than a couple years.
It's at least 4 years.
It's got to be at least.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it's not clear how long this takes place after season 1, but it does not feel like very long at all. And like you said, he doesn't have the prerequisites. Wesley was like a genius who grew up on a starship. Eleanor grew up on this little backwoods planet with Romulan refugees raised by nuns.
Yeah.
Like, does he even know what a warp field is? How does Eleanor know anything? And what about all the people he's beheaded? Surely they would look down on that at the admittance board.
Did he pass the Kobayashi Maru?
I don't know.
No, but to be fair, nobody does except for James Kirk.
True, but that's really stupid. That he's, if you want to say like he's in Starfleet, he's a cadet. That's fine.
Or he joined Starfleet, but not as a graduate of
civilian service.
Yeah, like Miles O'Brien.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Fine. Good enough.
He's a security. He's good at murdering people. So hey, we'll put him in security. He can behead people or whatever. Anyway, during his speech, Picard says, "My great-great-great-grandfather, I don't know if it's that, but he's talking to his ancestors, piloted the first ever starship in the fleet. But I choose today to leave you with the words of my mother, who was no explorer at all. She would point up to the night sky and say, Jean-Luc, let's see what's out there." Why would she say that if she's not interested in exploring at all? And she wasn't in Starfleet, and she was never on a starship.
Also, wait a minute. One of his ancestors was the pilot of the first starship in the fleet.
One of the first starships in the
Okay,
fleet.
one of the first starships. I was going to be like, oh, wow, so much for Travis Mayweather on Enterprise. Even in the 23rd century, they're whitewashing history.
Now, this is an obvious, I think it's an obvious reference to Encounter at Farpoint, where it says, let's see what's out there. But, the fact that he makes a point to say his mother was no explorer, yet she said, let's see what's out there? Why would she say that?
Exactly.
That's so stupid.
And why is this only coming up now, 30 years after Star Trek Next Generation became a thing?
I don't think Picard ever mentioned his mother once during TNG.
No. There was one episode where no one has gone, where no one has gone before. Well, yes, because I'm a fucking nerd. But also, they went to that part of the galaxy where their imaginations started to manifest into real realities, and he runs into his mother.
Okay, I barely remember that.
Did she say, "Let's see what's out there"?
No, she was like, "Come sit and have some tea."
Ah, so that's code for "Let's see what's out there."
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant.
We go to a scene where 7 of 9 is skulking around a cargo bay with a wrench, holding it like a weapon, and is apparently being hunted by thieves looking to steal medical supplies. Because if you remember from season 1, she's like some sort of space mercenary or something.
Right. A ranger.
Yeah, because that's totally what 7 of 9 would do. If anyone who knows 7 of 9 from Voyager, she was never violent. She was never relished combat. She was perfectly fine sitting in astrometrics looking at star charts all day.
She was always trying to achieve some sort of perfection or something.
Yeah, She's not like fucking Han Solo or anything.
So wouldn't
like that.
you think that Starfleet, as soon as she got back, would have made her like in charge of some sort of task force of trying to understand and combat the Borg and the next Borg invasion and threat instead of just
maybe, but you could say maybe she doesn't want that. She likes being a space ranger for some reason. Even though I think it's completely the opposite of what Annika Hansen is as a character.
Right.
Whatever. She gets in a fight with one of the thieves, and she's She's backed up by a hologram who is her partner. She's fighting with one of the thieves, and the hologram comes to help her, and she says, "Computer, deactivate hologram safety program," so the hologram can help her fight. But if the hologram's there to help her fight, why would they have safety protocols on at all? It smacks to me of the writers are like, oh, we saw an episode of Voyager where they said deactivate safety protocols, so they just repeated it for this, even though it makes absolutely no sense. If you have a hologram as a combat partner, why would you have safety protocols?
Right.
It's so stupid. But it's like, oh, we heard that on an episode of Voyager. We got to put that in.
Yeah, sure.
After the thieves are defeated, the hologram asks why Seven has never had a flesh and blood crew, and speculated that it's because of a lifetime of humans reacting with fear and prejudice to her Borg implants.
What?
That's how I remembered, oh yeah, in this future, in this Star Trek, humans are all racist and intolerant again for some reason. Yeah. Even though there really should be no prejudice against Seven, and realistically, 7 of 9 would have been like a beacon of hope to people who have lost people to the Borg. Like, I'm sure there's some people who would be nervous around her because, there's still ignorant people exist or whatever, but like, the fact that there's like still there's structuralized racism against former Borgs, no. I don't buy that.
Especially that you would now be almost, at least one generation removed from 359.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure people would probably be pretty much getting over that.
Yeah, that happened like, 40 years ago or something at this point?
Around it, if we're going by chronologically, it happened about 32 years ago.
Yeah, give or take, because, time accelerates and decelerates in that universe. So,
Yeah.
And especially after the Borg Reclamation Project. From season 1. I mean, it's become common knowledge that people can be, and Hugh as well, I'm sure other Borg that have been disconnected from the collective. It's pretty common knowledge that they can be successfully disconnected from the hive mind, and it's fine.
Yeah, well, plus people are fine with Picard, so why would they?
And Picard as well, yeah. So, of course, fucking Janeway was assimilated.
And plus, I'm sure more. Over time, more people have probably incorporated cybernetic implants into their daily lives too to enhance themselves. So who knows? I don't know. It's a flimsy.
The scene ends with 7 of 9 looking out the view screen to see a giant neon green space anomaly of some kind.
Oh, another anomaly! Yay!
Yeah, it's like a tear in space. Just like the last season that ended with a big tear in space. Mm-hmm. So after that scene, we get to the android planet in the Beta Quadrant with Soji. She's at a fancy dinner party with Agnes, where Soji, it's not specifically said, but it seems like she's like an ambassador or something. She's at a table with a bunch of other people and talking about, relations with androids or whatever. I think she's some sort of ambassador. I don't know why I wrote this. I wrote Agnes has noticeably gained weight. I don't know why that's relevant, but I wrote it down.
Oh, like Tilly weight gain?
No, not that. But she's wearing maybe she was pregnant because she was wearing like loose-fitting clothing, and that's kind of they use that to hide pregnancy a lot. I know in Voyager when Roxanne Biggs Dawson was pregnant, her uniform was never buttoned up.
Is she going to the Federation Planned Parenthood? I mean, she does love to murder.
I don't know. Oh, we'll talk about that. Actually, we'll talk about that right now. Agnes talks to a creepy-looking guy at a bar and casually mentions she was just pardoned of murder, which she was totally guilty of, by the way.
Right.
But she's just like, oh, yeah. Okay, I'll say this now. Agnes in this season is basically Kristen Wiig or Kate McKinnon from the 2016 Ghostbusters. Everything she says, she's supposedly a brilliant scientist, but everything she says is like cutesy pie, never takes anything seriously. She's like, I'm not really good at relationships right now because like my longest lasting relationship was like a month, and I'm just like pardoned of my last boyfriend's murder. It's like she's not taking anything seriously. Like you're just casually flipping off. You're just pardoned of murder. Like that doesn't make me like you. It doesn't make me think you're she's just cute and innocent. She's a fucking. I don't want to say the word.
She doesn't feel any guilt or remorse about it.
I guess not. She has no human emotion
Right.
in this season. She's just constantly flippant and saying goofy, like Joss Whedon-esque things. She's the Joss Whedon character in this.
Should we add a laugh track every time she talks?
Oh, she's horrible. Soji and Agnes talk about Rios and exchange dialogue like two high school girls talking about their crushes. Agnes beams up to the ship, captained by Rios, who is Starfleet captain now, I guess. I don't remember if he was in Starfleet in the last season.
I thought he just had his own...
Yeah, I always thought he was just like he owned a ship. Like in Deep Space Nine, where people could just own a ship.
Yeah.
If I remember from the Red Letter Media review, he was a part of a Starfleet crew that had found one of the androids and then just killed her instead of just using her for information to find the planet of the androids.
But was he a captain?
Not a captain, but I think he was a commander. So chances are, like in all of Star Trek, you don't actually have to earn a captaincy. It's just given to you. You don't have to take any tests or qualifications. It's like, nah.
Yeah, so Rios is now a Starfleet captain, and he has his own ship. He's on the bridge alone. No, he's not alone in the scene. Never mind. He's on the bridge, and this really pissed me off. He's sitting in his captain's chair smoking a cigar. Because apparently safety rules and decorum protocols no longer exist in Starfleet. You can just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
By the way, if you actually look at the Kobayashi Maru scene in Star Trek II, you'll notice a sign that says, "No smoking on the bridge."
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, what happened to like all Starfleet officers like being healthy and in shape and like like we drink synthahol so we don't get drunk. They don't smoke. They don't do anything like that. Now we got drug addicts. We got alcoholics. We got
People
chain
smoking,
smokers.
Your ableism is shining through subspace, Bubs.
Oh,
I mean,
Yeah, stop
honestly.
addiction shaming.
Oh, when we can have like 300-pound officers now, I guess. Out of shape.
Wow.
Scotty. There's precedent.
He was like 70 though at the time. He wanted to retire. They kept pulling him out. That's not his fault. He was done. And they're like, Scotty, get back in here. He's like,
They didn't pull him out of the buffet. That's for sure.
Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
right.
That's
Like
a terrible Scotty.
he bought a boat, but it wasn't actually a boat. It was just him in the water being buoyant. But
Admiral, there be whales here. Oh, and I've got a look on George and Gracie too.
Where was I? Oh yeah, we get a beauty shot of the outside of Rios' ship, and the score plays a rearrangement of the TNG theme, and I almost puked. That's what I wrote.
do the ships at least look distinct and nice and neat in this now?
I guess Rios' ship. We'll find out later that it's supposedly a refit, although we'll talk about that, of the Stargazer, except this one has 4 warp nacelles, and I think it looks kind of ugly. Like they have 4 warp nacelles like arranged like on each corner of the ship.
Okay.
And the Stargazer I think it just had 2.
I thought the Stargazer had 2, but they were closer together,
Yeah.
like 2 on top, 2 on the
Right.
bottom.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. However, I will say this. In one episode of TNG called Peak Performance, where they do that kind of war game, Riker's ship had 4 nacelles.
It was
Yeah.
the same class as the Stargazer.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure it was. I used to be.
I don't like the look of the 4 nacelles. No, I think it looks ugly. So back on Earth, we're at the Academy again, and Picard and Raffi, with Picard and Raffi, where Picard reveals he's been appointed Chancellor of the Academy, and that Raffi is now in a relationship with 7 of 9. I underlined this, so I guess I liked it. Picard being the head of the Academy is the first appropriate addition to his character yet, and actually seems like something he would enjoy doing in his retirement. I'm fine with that. I think Picard being the Chancellor of the Academy, that's good. I think he might enjoy something like that, and he's certainly qualified.
And I hate to once again nitpick, but Picard was offered the position of Commandant of Starfleet Academy much earlier in season 1.
Of Picard?
Well, sorry, of TNG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it just because he didn't want it back then doesn't mean he wouldn't want it.
I thought they only offered him that during the wasn't that during that invasion?
Yeah, that conspiracy thing that's going on.
Little, neck mount,
That episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, but I always thought, that would have been a good position for him, or even hell, if they had allowed Captain Kirk to live at the end of Star Trek Generations, maybe give him that job. inspiring the
Kirk
new
would want
generation.
No, Picard would probably like that.
Yes.
Kirk would hate it. Kirk wanted to go with the Blaze of Glory, not kind of like a punk on a planet by McDowell, but hey.
They might have offered it to him, but I don't think he would have taken
No,
it.
there's no way.
Picard meets up with Eleanor, who we found out has been assigned to the Excelsior. Picard gives him a memoir by Spock and says he talks a lot about his troubles being the first Vulcan in Starfleet. Which I wanted to ask Schweitzer. Was Spock the first Vulcan in Starfleet?
Correct.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
We're not counting Michael Burnham. Space Jesus.
I wrote this as something I liked. I actually like Picard in this scene. He's very warm, but still rigid and formal, and feels appropriate to his character. Also, he gives Eleanor this copy of Spock's memoir, and it's actually like a book, not a data pad, which is very Picard. Picard would want a physical book to give away, so that's appropriate. I'm trying to give this show as much credit as I possibly can. That's appropriate to the character, and like I said, he's warm towards Eleanor, but still, he's got like his Chancellor uniform on. He's still being professional, so good. And Raffi tries to goad him a little, but he doesn't give in. So I don't remember what the goading was, but Raffi's trying to like push his buttons a little, and Picard's not having it.
It's like they actually hired like one writer who watched the original show, and they're like, okay, we need some we'll give you a couple scraps of ideas to put in the show, but the rest of it just go sit in the corner.
Yeah. And like this scene, it's basically two characters who have a relationship with each other talking about meaningful dialogue. That's the stuff I like. There's almost none of it in here, but when it happens, I like it, and I'll mention it again coming up soon. We go back to space. This show jumps around a lot. So we're back in space now on Rios' ship at the Neon Green Space Anomaly. Rios is still smoking, and his uniform isn't tucked in. And I just hate it. I hate one recurring theme in this show that I'll hate is that I hate every time is the complete disregard for standards, protocol. It's like the writers don't know that Starfleet is a military organization, and there are standards and protocols. There's none of that. It's just characters are doing whatever they want. They're overly emotional. They're yelling. They're violent. There's
Casual Friday at Starfleet.
Yeah, I guess.
And that's kind of the big problem with Discovery. It's like everybody's just emotional outbursts and crying and yelling and swearing, and it's like, okay, this isn't like frat time at the play school. It's a fucking military.
And I think I get what they're trying to do. Like Rios has a cigar and he's smoking, and his shirt's not tucked in, so it's like, oh, he's a loose space captain. He doesn't play by the rules. He's a renegade. Like, okay, but you're still a Starfleet captain.
But maybe have him do that in like his ready room or his quarters, and
exactly, like
see how he's tough on the bridge, but then he's like chill and relaxed behind closed doors or something.
Exactly. You never saw Cisco take that baseball out of his office and start playing a game of catch in the middle of ops.
Right. And Riker was as Starfleet as you could get, but he was still kind of a playboy. He still, I don't know if he broke the rules, but he felt like he was more kind of fly by the seat of your pants type. Riker was more like that, but he was still like Starfleet to a T.
Set an example.
Yeah, you can have that kind of suave like a outrageous Okona type of character, but still have them, being Starfleet captain material. Mm-hmm. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Agnes is there now. She's sitting in the first officer's seat, even though she's not even Starfleet personnel. Again, there's no rules. I always kind of was annoyed when Troy would sit in the seat next to Picard, but at least she was a Starfleet, personnel.
Yeah, you kind of didn't realize she was like a lieutenant until like how many seasons?
There was that. It was in Disaster, I think.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, who's in charge? Like, oh, well, Troy is a lieutenant commander. O'Brien says that, and Troy's like, oh yeah. She doesn't even know her own rank.
Well, that's the thing. It's like nobody knew her own rank because after the first episode, Encounter at Farpoint, she was never in a uniform until season 6.
Yeah.
And the thing is, putting her in a uniform actually made her even hotter.
It did. It absolutely did. Until Jellicoe said, like, "Hey, bitch, put on a uniform for God's sake."
I have standards. Maybe we need some Edward Jellicoe to pop in on this show, just straighten people out.
Absolutely. So Yeah, the science officer says minor space anomaly, Rios asks his science officer what it is, and she says it's a minor space anomaly, minor tachyon radiation, but nothing critical, but it appears stable. 709 shows up. Rios gets a transmission then from inside the anomaly, and the Universal Translator can't translate it. Agnes says, I'll take care of this, and then awkwardly stumbles to a console like a child and kicks the Starfleet officer off of the console before sarcastically saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Captain, may I?" And then the Bajoran woman, who's the science officer, objects. Like, she looks at Rios like, dude, what the hell? And
Right.
Rios says, trust me, you'll find it easier to defer. So this woman, who's not even she's not even in Starfleet, just kicks off the science officer and says, hey, I'll do your job for you. And Rios is like, why not? Like, that Bajoran woman should have been fucking pissed.
Right.
Oh, and the fact that they just let her do whatever she wants.
Persecuted from her position.
Yeah. Oh, and she's Indian, by the way. She's an Indian Bajoran,
That's
which is interesting, but whatever.
the big subcontinent on Beijing.
I don't know. Agnes pulls up a hologram. It's like Minority Report, where you have like holograms in front of you and you manipulate them with your fingers. Agnes pulls up a hologram of the transmission and says it's multiple languages all layered on top of each other, and they're all pleading, "Help us, Picard." She can tell this from the wave pattern only and doesn't even listen to it. So apparently, if there's multiple languages layered on top of each other, the Universal Translator has no idea what it's saying, but Agnes can look at the waveform and tell you exactly what it is.
Agnes knows how to do it.
Of course.
So wait, it's kind of like there are multiple voices speaking different languages all at the same time. Is that what they mean?
Yes.
How could the Universal Translator not be able to distinguish that? Because
I know,
there have
right?
been so many scenes where aliens are all talking at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's not like it's just producing a scratch noise. It's like, nope, everybody can understand it.
It can
That's stupid as hell.
Yeah, it's called isolate and separate. They've done it a billion times.
Or like, just do what Janeway would tell Harry, modulate the Universal Translator. He'd press a button. How about now, Captain? Better. It's like, there.
So all the Starfleet graduates basically got. Well, I guess they did lower their standards because they can't even figure that basic shit out.
There's also a casual line where she says the language is not. I didn't write this down, but I remember it. The language is not in our database. But the Universal Translator can translate languages it's never heard before.
Yeah, it can analyze shit and pick up basic speech patterns.
But I guess the writers don't know that. Because you have to actually watch Star Trek to know that.
Is this going to be the same goddamn anomaly from fucking All Good Things?
I don't know. So we go to commercial, and after the break, Picard beams down to, wait for it, 10 Forward Avenue in what I can only assume is Los Angeles because it looks like Los Angeles and it's cheap to film there. Now, when I was doing my predictions, which, by the way, all of them are wrong, when I was doing my predictions, I was saying that this might be part of the alternate timeline or the new reality that Picard finds himself in. But no, apparently there is just a place called 10 Forward Avenue where Guinan set up.
How convenient.
How convenient. It's like when she's looking for a bar on Earth to own. She's like, oh, I have to look. She looks on Google Maps for a 10 Forward Avenue because it was so important to her, this woman who's lived 900 years and worked as a bartender for, 7 years?
Yeah.
It's so important to her, she has to find 10 Forward Avenue to set up her own bar. And by the way, we're going to get into the Guinan scene now, but I'll mention this right now. Why does Guinan still have to be a bartender? Like, she's like 900 years old. She's done probably everything there is to do in a lifetime.
Yeah.
But, like, she was a bartender on the Enterprise for 6 or 7 years, so she's got to be one now.
Well,
and she's the bartender. She
my
can
only
do anything.
rationale for that is, don't they say her race is a race of listeners? So maybe that's
Yes.
where she figures the best place to listen is at a bar.
And that would make sense on the Enterprise where there's important shit going on, but now she's just at some nowhere bar in Los Angeles on Earth.
I guess she still likes listening to non-important shit in Los Angeles. I don't know.
I guess. Anyway, the fact that it's at 10 Forward Avenue, and
It's so
not
dumb.
and it's not just a construct in Picard's mind, is really fucking stupid.
Right.
But it's so fans can point at it and go, oh, I know what that is. That was her bar on the ship. But problem is fans who actually know that
Or just gonna cringe.
are just going to cringe, and they're not the type who are like, I remember that.
Yeah.
So he enters the bar where Guinan immediately references Earl Grey hot For the second time in the episode, it's mentioned earlier on the episode, I didn't mention it.
That's a thing I remember.
Right. Because remember that? Picard brings her a bottle of wine. And I underlined that, so I guess I liked that. I don't know, it seems like a minor thing, but I guess it seems like something I like. Maybe because it just seems like something. Maybe I just underlined it because it seems like something Picard would do.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's something Picard would.
He has his own vineyard. They're old
It's
friends. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I guess anytime a character acts in character, it pleases me because it happens so rarely.
Yeah, that's a reach.
Yeah. Picard remarks that Elorians age very slowly, and Guinan replies with, "But only if we choose to. I noticed that humans don't like being reminded of their mortality, so I try to keep up."
What? I don't get that at all. It's like, so wait, you chose not to age on the Enterprise at all,
Right.
but now,
How about when
now
she was?
you do.
How about when she was hanging out with Mark Twain? Why didn't she age herself up for him?
Or you just move place to place, so what does
Right.
it really even matter?
This only makes sense if Guinan is around a select group of people for a very long time.
Plus, again, we're going from humans are evolved in the future, and all the prejudice and uncomfortableness and all that shit is behind us. To now, humans are afraid of Borgs with implants. Humans aren't comfortable with people aging them around. Like, how far backwards have we fucking gone in the future now? We were so far ahead, and now we feel like we're going even back further than what we are now.
Well, it's because the writers of this show are cynical and they want to turn everything into their own political soapbox, as we'll see later on in the series. They don't care about the universe of Star Trek. It's like the show they're writing is an extension of their tweets. Basically.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of how generations kind of see the world, I guess. Like, in my generation, you're kind of part of that too, because you're not that much younger than me, is we watched shows to see characters that were better than us. Like, we wanted to lose ourselves and be the hero, like see the hero, be the hero.
Yeah.
We didn't want ourselves represented. We wanted ourselves to become better people and become the heroes that we're following in our stories,
Mm-hmm.
But now this generation wants everything to represent them. I want to see myself in this.
And not just that, but the worst aspects of that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like, look how good we can become. They want it to be, look how bad we are.
Yeah.
Even if it's not actually that bad, they want to accentuate the bad parts of our society now. And I know we're sounding like two old men on the porch, but I really feel that way. And I was talking to Schweitzer about this the other day, where I found just this random clip recommended to me on YouTube. It's this what episode is it from, Schweitzer, where Picard and Data are talking in the Ready Room?
No, Worf and Data.
Or Worf and Data, sorry.
That's from Gambit Part 2 from Season 7 of TNG.
Okay. It's a scene where Data is in temporary captaincy of the Enterprise, and Worf is... Data gives an order, when Worf responds to it, oh, finally. And then Data brings him into the Ready Room to discipline him, saying, you remember that scene?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, this is not the proper decorum for a first officer, and then they kind of go back and forth, and then Data's like, well, these are the guidelines I laid out, and if you can't conform to them, I will have to transfer you off the bridge. And then Worf says, okay, I understand. Yes, you're right. And then Data's like, well, I hope we haven't damaged our friendship. That scene, I said that to Schweitzer. I said, this is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Trek because it's the perfect example of what we should strive to be. Because Worf, in that scene, Data he has to discipline Worf because of his insubordination. But he does it in the most mannered and disciplined way, and he's tough but fair with Worf. And Worf, who's you would think would just be trying to fight Data the whole time, because he's a Klingon, he's hot-headed, but he takes Data's criticism, he considers it, and says, yes, you're right, I will conform to these guidelines because in the future. And Data's like, thank you, you were dismissed. Oh, by the way, I still consider you my friend. The way they handle that in the most mature manner possible, that is such a good example of we should want to be like these characters. I don't want to be like any of these characters in Picard. That's one thing I miss about TNG, or what I love about TNG, is it's the it's like the perfect representation of what we should all strive to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not what we are, what we strive to be.
Yeah.
I don't want to be represented. I want to be better.
Even if that representation, you can make an argument that humanity will never get there. It's too removed from human nature, which I think is a valid argument.
Right.
But why can't we strive for perfection?
Exactly.
It's
It's
just-
not
it's
the
not-
destination.
it's not so
the
much-
journey.
That's right. It's not even so much perfection, but rather just to be better.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
self-improvement.
And there's none of that in Picard. Like, I don't want to be any of these characters.
But because now society tells you that you're okay the way you are. Any
Yes.
of your flaws you're perfect the way you are, and none of it's your fault. You want to be 300 pounds? Fine, we'll put you on the cover of a magazine. You're stunning and brave. You're beautiful. That's you. You're perfect. Don't try to be better. Just be yourself.
Speaking of 300 pounds, that's a good transition back to Guinan here.
Oh no! Is she talking about the Jews again?
No.
But she does say that the Cardassian occupation of Bajor had nothing to do with race.
Anyway, I don't want to harp on this too much, but yeah, the fact that they said, well, Elorians can control how fast they age. There's obviously the writers thought, like, we have to mention the fact that Guinan is older now because fans of the show will know, she basically doesn't age, she ages incredibly slowly. But the fact that they chose this explanation, the stupidest one,
Yeah.
makes no sense. Not only does it make no sense, you're adding new lore to Star Trek where it's not needed. And I don't consider Picard canon, but technically it is. So now Elorians can control their own aging, which makes no sense when you could just easily have said, I came up with this line in like 1 minute, where Picard could say, well, oh, Guinan, you're looking a little older now. And she says, well, Elorians may live a long time, but we're not young forever.
Yeah, I was thinking
That's all
something
you
along
need.
the same lines. Hey, it's slow, but it's not eternal.
Right. We may live a long time, but, you're not young forever. And then Picard, you can even take it further, and Picard could say, well, you don't look a day over 900. And they put in a little joke between friends, and then it also tells the audience exactly how old she is. Or the audience who doesn't know Guinan knows, oh, she's extremely old. And it's a neat little moment. But, like, we can control how long we age, or how we age, and we try to... I aged myself up so you wouldn't feel awkward.
It's also
This is so goddamn stupid.
It's also been established that Guinan has many children. You could have even argued, hey, I had a couple more kids, and every time you have a child, it ages you a little more.
You can do that.
That's part of the... I mean, there's
It's
100
further
different things you could have done that were better than that nonsense,
Right.
is what I'm saying.
You could just not acknowledge it at all.
Yep.
Even if you just didn't acknowledge it, the fans would know, like, oh, she's aged, but, the actor aged.
Yeah.
It's not a big
We can
deal.
forgive it.
We can
It's not-
forgive it.
It's a minor thing. We'll let it go. It's a lot less dumb than putting Picard in an android.
Also, the fact that she says to Picard, well, the Elorians can control how fast they age. For one, Picard's known Guinan for a long time. If that was true, he would have known that. Making her telling him that completely fucking pointless.
Yeah.
That's like if Picard caught Worf like training with a bat'leth, and he said, "Why are you training with a sword?" "Well, Captain, Klingons are proud warriors, and we train with weapons." Yeah, no shit. Picard would know that.
Yes.
So that no matter how you slice this scene, it's fucking stupid. Oh my god. I should have like a blood pressure monitor or something. And then just have it beep when I get too mad.
Now we have to change the subject.
Yeah. Guinan says that she's only seen Picard look this distressed once before, which I don't know if that's like an actual reference to something else in the series or just an offhanded dialogue. But she says she goes to pick up a bottle from the bar and says, well, will it be top shelf or hooch? And Picard says, well, hooch, I guess. For one, Picard is not the type to drink hooch.
Right.
He's not like, yeah, of course we'll need the cheap, shitty alcohol. No, Picard's going to drink. He's going to want, like, brandy or something like that. But anyway...
Saurian brandy. There you go.
She grabs a bottle of Saurian brandy.
Oh, my God. Holy shit.
Saurian brandy is, and this is my note, Saurian brandy is considered hooch, even though Nog made a big deal about acquiring some for the DS9 crew during the Dominion War. It was mentioned as being Sisko's favorite drink. Quark used it during business negotiations, and Kirk used it to toast the crew of the Antares. But apparently now it's just cheap hooch. Because the writers they've heard of Soji and Brandy, but they don't know that it's actually a highly sought after commodity.
Again, you could have went back to Star Trek canon because this transcends both the original series and Next Generation. Just grab the big bottle of green.
There you go. That would have been.
Oh, yes!
What is it?
What is that?
It is green.
It's green. That would have been a nice call.
And that's all it is. Picks up a green bottle off the bottom shelf, the hooch shelf. It is green.
But also, calling Soji and Brandy cheap hooch is actually really stupid because there is, in canon, a cheap alcoholic beverage that's very common for humans to drink in Starfleet, which is...
root beer.
Oh, yeah, but... Synthol.
Synthol,
She could have grabbed Synthol.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because even in Deep Space Nine, Quark remarks that he says to O'Brien, like, how do you drink that stuff? Like, it's considered to be a cheap thing that only humans like or whatever.
I thought it was just non-alcoholic beer, basically.
Well, if it was non-alcoholic, why would they drink it? Synthol is alcoholic, isn't it?
Well, I thought that's
Synthol?
the whole point of synthetic, where it doesn't have
Schweitzer?
doesn't have the effects of alcohol.
Yeah, it doesn't get you drunk.
Then why drink it?
I don't know.
I was
The same
assuming
reason why people drink non-alcoholic beer. I don't understand it.
I was
There's a
assuming it
reason
was just
for
like replicated alcohol, basically. Okay, whatever. But yeah, Soji and Brandy is cheap hooch now, apparently, because nothing matters. This is underlined. They'll discuss Picard's fear of intimacy and commitment, and it's actually a pretty decent little chat. And I actually thought that there was chemistry between Sir Patrick and Whoopi. In this is the one scene in the show that I actually like. When they actually sit down and start talking, I liked it because I think there is chemistry between the two actors. The dialogue's not great, but it's not cringy. During their conversation, Guinan quips, "There are worse things than being dead. You know that better than anybody." I don't know what she was referencing to. Maybe the fact that he was a Borg, or the fact that he's now an android zombie.
Would she even know that?
I don't know, but I would say that's a fate worse than death. Sure. I wouldn't want that. She says, "The only place I've ever known you to be afraid of exploring is in here," and then points to his heart, which is a little sappy, but I like that line. Which it's a nice way of saying like. A nice way of saying what Q was trying to say to him in All Good Things. Like, the one frontier you need to counter is, it's in your heart, Picard. I like that. I thought that was a good line. She says, what happened in there that you and I have never talked about? And then through this whole scene, Picard goes to talk to Guinan. And Guinan's like trying to get him to open up and talk about it, and Picard says almost nothing during the scene, which at first I was kind of annoyed with. Like, why would he go to talk to Guinan if he's not going to say anything? But then I remembered, it's Picard. He like went there because Guinan maybe is the only person he feels he could maybe open up to. But when it gets down to it, his heart is still a locked safe. He still can't express himself, which I kind of like. That's true to Picard's character, so I didn't mind that. Even though it makes the scene kind of pointless, it doesn't feel out of place to me. Later that night at the winery, Picard is meeting with Admiral Sally. I'm sure that's her first name because Picard just calls her Sally, but we don't get her full name. She tells him about the anomaly in space and plays him the message where it says, "Help us, Picard." The Admiral quotes Article 15, which apparently governs the petition to enter the Federation by a species that can open and close a hole in space-time. Picard is seemingly given a mission of diplomacy. Oh my God, what a concept! Yeah. She tells Picard, they want you to seemingly help them join the Federation, so you need to go and facilitate that. That's something Picard would do. Like, oh my God, you're not going to fight a giant space octopus and save a robot from mercenaries. He's going to conduct negotiations on a new species entrance into Starfleet, or the Federation. Yeah! Fucking amazing!
We still do that? Hold on, let me dust off that book.
So within the next 30 seconds, Picard is on 7 of 9's ship. There's not even like a Star Wars-esque light transition that shows passage of time. He's just there now, which is revealed to be the Stargazer. When he gets on the ship, the crew lines up to meet him, and there's ADR, they stand rigid along the corridor to, because there's Admiral on the deck or whatever, and there's an ADR line of somebody saying, "Hey, it's Admiral Picard." So the audience knows they know it's Admiral Picard.
Right.
It's obviously ADR. Like, it's so pathetic and annoying. 709 says that the ship is the first in its class and uses technology from the Borg Reclamation Project.
What?
I don't know how the ship is the first in its class when it's supposedly, they'll say, Picard will mention later that it's a refit of the Stargazer, which is not a new class.
So, yeah.
I guess, okay, maybe it's a new class because it uses Borg technology.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If it's a new class, though, would it be called? It would be called a Stargazer class ship. Also, check its registry, because all the debut ships of a registry have the registry NX, not NCC. The new ones are always called NX. That's how it was for the Defiant. So check that registry when you get to episode 3.
I'll keep an eye out for that, because they do one glory shot of the outside of the ship, but I don't recall seeing the call sign on it. So where was I? 7 also says that there are still people in Starfleet that fear the Borg, and she thinks that her presence is increasing tensions and paranoia. And again, like I said before, I don't see that happening at all. I don't think people would be afraid of her because she was former Borg. At least not Starfleet people. Maybe just regular people, like ignorant people, whatever. I'm pretty sure Starfleet. I wrote this one. I'm pretty sure Starfleet personnel are quite familiar with the concept of former Borgs by now. Picard goes to the bridge to meet Rios and remarks that the Stargazer is a refit, despite the fact that 7 just said it was the first of a new class. So I don't think the writers know what a refit is. Plus, Schweitzer will know this, I'm sure, but wasn't the Stargazer? It wasn't destroyed. Was it destroyed or was it derelict at some point?
It was derelict.
It was derelict after the battle at Moxia, and then the Ferengi gave it back, but they didn't destroy it after I think that episode was called The Battle.
So I guess it's possible that they could refit the Stargazer, even though at this point the ship would be, what, 50 years old? 100? Because, Picard would have existed before Picard.
Yeah.
It's going to be like 100 years old at this point. Is it even worth refitting a ship that old? I don't know. But like I said, we get 2 conflicting stories. Either it's the first of a new class or it's a refit. Those 2 things don't mesh. Right. Picard goes, I read that already. Picard addresses the anomaly, and a spooky Borg voice responds by repeating his name. And then the consoles start to flicker. Rios immediately goes to red alert and tells the helmsman to back off, despite the fact that there's no immediate threat. We get an exterior shot of the ship that shows the Stargazer is practically touching the anomaly, so the writers also don't know that Starfleet ships can be at huge distances from things and still observe and communicate with them. They're like literally like right up next to it. You can be a million light years away and still communicate it with it, or examine it, right. Or send a probe. Like I said, there's no rules anymore.
Or if like subspace was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A diamond-shaped Borg ship emerges, and 7 of 9 says that it's kind of a diamond shape with like spines coming out of it.
Okay.
It emerges, and 7 of 9 says that ship is Borg. For the dum-dums in the audience who don't recognize a giant green and black ship with Borg noises and that looks like a Borg ship, even though last season was heavily dealing with Borg ships.
Right.
She literally says that ship is Borg. Yeah, thanks, 7. We know. We've seen Star Trek.
I'll be honest. Like, if I see a green anomaly, I would automatically assume like 50-50 shot. That's Borg.
Yeah, that's like their favorite.
Calling
color.
It right now. Yeah.
So we go to a new scene. Again, this takes place. Dozens of vessels arrive to greet the Borg ship, even though it's like literally just a cut. So it feels like no time has passed. Like literally 20 Starfleet ships are there now to greet the Borg ship. So, I guess the Borg ship just waited there and did nothing while 20 ships warped in, whatever. In the briefing room, the crew are discussing what to do. 7 says the Borg consume, they assimilate, they don't ask to be assimilated. And Agnes says, the Borg we knew have been effectively decimated, functionally hobbled. My question is when? When were the Borg destroyed, like functionally hobbled and decimated? Did we ever see that?
Endgame.
The end of the...
Yeah, but the Borg weren't decimated. Like, Endgame destroyed their ability to transwarp into the Alpha Quadrant, but they're still around. They're still...
But like, you have to look at that infection that Janeway gave to the Queen. It's kind of like, I like that's the thing. It was never properly explored. Okay, like how much of damage did this do to the Borg? Did this destroy them all over? Like, was it just like a significant portion of them that were destroyed? Like, what exactly happened? But we just see Unimatrix Zero Unimatrix One, sorry, is like ultimately destroyed. But what does that mean for the rest of the Borg spread throughout the galaxy?
This is where I wish they would have done some sort of compendium series or something to bridge the gap between the end of the next generation and the beginning of this generation. Just give us an explanation of some things that have happened over the 30-year gap. What happened after the Dominion War? What happened after Voyager returned? Just something small, a little connection video or a book or something explaining what's been going on for 30 years.
I never got the sense that Endgame destroyed the Borg. I got the sense that it dealt a crippling blow to them, and maybe like the now that the transwarp hub is gone, the amount of Borg in the Alpha Quadrant have decreased. Yeah. But I'm sure the Borg, I mean, there's still a lot of them in the Delta Quadrant. They're probably building more transwarp hubs, right? Like, yes. I don't see how that would... And like the virus that Janeway released, did that shut down the entire collective? Maybe it's so. I just never got that sense. Yeah. Schweitzer? Did they ever specify that is literally what happened?
They never specified. I mean, it was very hard to tell.
So Seven is angry that Picard would even consider peace talks with the Borg, and says, "If I'm wrong, we destroy a Borg ship. But if we're right and we do nothing, this is the beginning and the beginning of the end of the Federation." My question is, why? Yeah. Say the Borg ship really do want to join the Federation, they would never be allowed in. Like, yeah. The writers think you can just. I think the writers think you can just join the Federation if you ask. But like we know from TNG, we've seen races apply to be in the Federation, and they have to be inspected. They have
years, decades.
The Bajorans even they waited like what 8 years to join the Federation because they have to.
There's certain criteria you have to meet before.
Right. Yeah, like for one thing, like the reason that they couldn't join immediately was because. Number one, the planet had just been decimated. There was hardly a legitimate government. They kept calling it the provisional government. Second of all, you had so much infighting among Bajoran factions that it's kind of like this planet is almost teetering on the brink of civil war constantly. We can't have them in there if they're fighting amongst themselves because which side do we support?
Not to mention, there's never ever been a formal peace talks with the Borg. So technically, they'd still be at war with them. There's never been a declaration of the end of the war with the Borg. They've defeated them in a battle or two, and then, of course, the whole the whole transwarp thing being shut down. But there's never been a formal declaration of end of hostilities between the Borg and the Federation. So you're not going to go from that step right to joining the Federation.
I know, right? Or like even remember that episode of TNG with I think it's the one where Beverly Crusher gets abducted by the terrorists, and James Cromwell is there as the leader of the organization. Yeah. They were applying for entrance in the Federation, but they were denied because they have like this lower class of people that they're subjugating.
Yeah, they saw like almost like a civil war almost about to happen.
Yeah, if they weren't admitted in Starfleet, there's no fucking way the Borg would be.
Yeah.
The Borg don't even have a planet. They don't even have a society.
But remember. Nothing makes sense because remember the Romulan Empire was wiped out because one sun went supernova.
Right. Not because the writers don't know that the Romulan Star Empire basically spans like most of the Alpha,
tons of systems.
Half of the Alpha Quadrant and like most of the Beta Quadrant.
Right.
I think
There's probably 100 systems, if not more. But one star going supernova is going to wipe them all out.
So the Borg hail again, and they want to negotiate, saying that they will send their queen as an emissary. Rios says that no way and raises the shield. An ensign says that the Borg are initiating a transport and asks if he should fire, to which Rios responds, "Not yet. They can't transport through our shields." Despite the fact that if he had the requisite knowledge that a Starfleet captain should have, he would know that the Borg can absolutely transport through shields. Yes. They've done it many times, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
Seven wants him to fire. Rios calls security to the bridge, and we see the scene that we saw from the beginning of the episode. The Borg Queen beams on the bridge, and Agnes looks at her and says, "That's new." Because God forbid you take a dangerous situation seriously.
Well, what the fuck does Agnes even know about the Borg at all?
She has to have a quip because Joss Whedon ruined writing for the last 10 years.
Okay.
Remember that scene in Best of Both Worlds when when those Borg beamed aboard the ship, and when Riker saw them, he was like, "Whoa, looks like we've got company."
Yeah, I know, right? But this is the problem with not just Picard, but a lot of modern day writing. And I've said this before. How am I supposed to take things seriously when the characters don't take things seriously?
Right.
Anyway, the Queen says, "We wish for peace, but first we require power," and then begins using her Borg tentacles to drain power from the ship. Seven fires recklessly, and the crew follow despite not being commanded to do so, because Rios just stands there. The crew just start firing, even though Rios never told them to fire. So, again, no protocol, no chain of command. People just do whatever they fucking want in this universe. The computer conveniently tells us that the Queen is transferring bridge controls to herself. Agnes adds that she's using the Borg technology in the ship to interface with it and all the other Starfleet ships. Maybe you shouldn't have put Borg technology in your ship like that.
Wait, so she can use the Borg technology in this ship to relate to all the other Federation ships that don't have Borg technology?
Yes. Because I guess she's using that as like a backdoor to their system.
Because no other ship has a failsafe and the prefix codes and all that.
Exactly.
To stop all that stuff from happening, just the Borg can just instantly do that because there's technology on this one ship.
Because Alex Kurtzman.
Yeah, okay.
But also, haven't we seen Borg like interfacing with Starfleet ships just fine before using their wrist tentacles?
Uh-huh.
Like they didn't even need to say, "Oh, it's because of the Borg technology." It's like Borg can do that. We've seen them do that.
In the very first episode, they were doing that shit.
The Queen tells, and then Picard activates the auto-destruct sequence despite not being listed as an active crew member on the Stargazer. He just says, activate self-destruct, and the computer's like, self-destruct activated. I guess anybody can
didn't have to go through like the three commanding officers doing it and destruct codes and...
Yeah, oh
just
my gosh.
Just say it now.
Now, if you want to be fair, maybe the computer, it's fair to assume that Picard he's a legendary admiral. You might say, well, it has his voice command, his voice pattern on record, and maybe during an emergency situation, it will recognize his voice command without
but that's
activating.
Pretty sloppy security considering A, we know androids are a threat, and B, we know androids can easily mimic Picard's voice. Data did it several times.
Oh, it's stupid.
There you go.
Don't mistake me defending this. I'm trying to give it as much credit as possible, but even still, it's still stupid.
All right.
Like, he's not even listed as an active crew member.
No.
It's really dumb. The Queen tells Picard to look up in the voice that his mother said in the beginning of the episode, and then the ship explodes.
And the show's over! Picard's done! Series is over. Ship blew up, everybody dead. Roll credits.
One more scene.
Oh.
The scene cuts to Picard back at the vineyard in the room where he talked to his mother in the flashback. He's wearing all black clothes and his comm badge is different. The vineyard is a moldy wreck falling apart from disuse. Picard walks around the house and sees a sword and a painting of him. He sees a sword on the wall and a painting of him in a black Starfleet uniform with commander's tips. He quickly meets with a gay android who calls himself Harvey, who appears to be a server.
What?
He's like, those like faceless androids from season 1?
Yeah.
He's like that, but with a thick gay accent for some reason.
Because androids have sexuality?
I don't know.
Well, Data did.
Well, kind of.
It's just something I noted. I don't have a problem with it. It's just,
I know, it's just
no. It's just like
you think they would have like very generic, bland, computery voices, but no, this one sounds like he's straight off the set from Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Hey, do you think they have any non-binary binar?
Are there pronouns 0 and 1?
0.5.
Oh, okay.
They're 5.
Right.
They go both ways.
Just then, Q appears and greets Picard. A CGI young John Delancey greets him and says, "Let me catch up," and snaps his fingers to appear old. I will say, if you look at it for long enough, the CGI deepfake of young John Delancey doesn't look great, but it's only on screen for like 3 seconds, so it's not too bad. Like,
Now,
you know,
see, in that case, the aging makes sense.
Total sense.
Q being able to, choose his age to mimic humans, it makes sense there.
And all he says is, "Let me catch up," and snap.
Right.
That's all you need.
Yep.
Perfect. I'd have no problem with that. Q says, "Do you recall what I said when last we parted ways? The trial never ends." And I wrote, I think the writers think that Q's test was for Picard personally and not for the human race in general.
Right.
Because Q liked to fuck with Picard a little bit, but the trial was never about Picard. It was about humanity and them taking their place in the universe. I don't think the writers understand that. Q continues, "You've been talking a lot about second chances. Welcome to the very end of the road not taken." And I don't recall anyone ever talking about second chances in this episode.
So we're doing Tapestry again?
No,
yeah.
not really. You'll find out in the next episode.
Okay.
But that's after fucking over an hour. That's that's episode 1.
That's episode 1.
That's episode 1. Now I think episode 2 might be a little bit quicker. They do front load episode 1 with a lot of going back and forth between characters and setting things up, and so it's not going to be this long for each one. I don't think. There's just a lot of back and forth in this episode. So before I get into season 2, does it sound like a great show that you guys want to join me in watching?
Fuck no.
I am so glad that I predicted that Donald Trump wouldn't appear on the Joe Rogan podcast before the election.
I will say these 2 episodes were terrible and stupid, and I hated them, but I never felt it painful. Maybe it's just because and I'm not saying this to be like, Mr. Obstinate Trek fan, but I really don't consider this Star Trek.
No, I don't either.
It feels to me like, if you look up on IMDb, they have listed like all these like Trek fan films. Like you look, Walter Koenig has been in like 20 Trek fan films, and if you look up like other bit part Star Trek actors like Ethan Phillips or Cyril Lofton, they've all been in a bunch of like fan films that are actually fairly well produced and actually get Star Trek actors to be in them, despite the fact that they're unofficial. That's what this feels like to me. It's like a fan film, a really bad Star Trek fan. And like, I don't give a shit if those Star Trek fan films ruin Trek canon, because they don't count.
Exactly.
This doesn't count to me, so I wasn't angry watching this.
Yeah.
But it still sucks.
Like I say, in my head, everything stops at all good things for me. Maybe First Contact. Other than that, I don't care about any other Trek after that.
Same.
DS9 and Voyager can exist, and that's about it.
Okay, so episode 2 opens up with this is a long paragraph in the first scene because there's a lot jam-packed into it, and this is the moment where I thought, I'm glad that I'm watching this and not Schweitzer, because we'd probably be down a co-host of this show, because Schweitzer would probably hang himself.
Okay.
This scene with Q and Picard, I hate it, but I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking Schweitzer would hate it even more, so we'll see. Episode 2 opens up with a shot of Earth with some kind of red shield grid surrounding it. And
Highlander 2?
And I don't know. You watched Highlander 2?
Years ago.
I would never.
What do you want?
Okay. With some kind of shield grid surrounding it and air raid sirens going off. Q and Picard step outside the vineyard. Picard asks where the crew of the Stargazer went, and Q says, "How yesterday's Enterprise of you." Remember that? Q references the name of a Star Trek episode. How yesterday's Enterprise of you.
So Star Trek's meta now?
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe. No, I was going to defend it. Say maybe Q is like this all-knowing supreme being. So maybe
Q is Gene Roddenberry.
Maybe he can see into an alternate reality where this is just a TV show. But no. So Q's. I didn't write down all of Q's dialogue. I just wrote, Q spouts a lot of overwritten metaphors to simply explain that they are in a world of Picard's doing. And Picard says, "I'm too old for your bullshit." That's what Picard would say. Mm-hmm. Picard looks closely at... Okay, so they have this back and forth between them where, like I said, Q goes way too long to basically saying, like, this is a world of your doing. You've created this. This is the road less taken. It's part of your history now. And Picard in this scene is acting... Q in this scene is acting, like, a lot more angry and hostile than he normally would. He seems, like, angry at Picard, like not just like playful like he used to be. And Picard has this moment where he looks at Q in the face and he says, "You're not well." And it's supposed to be this line where it's supposed to go like, "Oh, geez, is Q sick? Is Q dying or whatever?" So they're setting up like, to me this seemed like a lazy excuse for Q to act out of character. So like, oh, he's dying or he's sick or he's insane or whatever. So it's like, oh, that explains why he's not acting like Q would act. That's how I interpreted it anyway. But maybe they don't elaborate on it more. Maybe we'll find out something. Q's dying or something like that.
They did that one already too. But already didn't they do something like that in Voyager?
Well, that was about suicide. And you know what? I was thinking about this. I wouldn't hate it if they introduced the fact that Q's can get sick and die or can grow too old in age, because we don't know really anything about Q. They're beings like any other. Like, maybe they can die, and like Q has said before, like, I don't know if he said specifically in Voyager that there's never been a Q death, or if it was just a Q suicide that there's never been. I don't know. But maybe the Q can die, it's just no one ever has before, because it's taken them millennia.
The Q have been assimilated.
I don't know. Anyway, that's just speculation.
Yeah.
So after he says, "You're not well," Q gets angry and snaps his fingers, transporting them to further out into the vineyard, I guess. Whatever. Q explains that he's intervened in his destruction. So right when the ship blew up, Q snapped his fingers and brought them here. Picard says again that he has had enough of Q's behavior, and Q slaps him in the face, explaining that this is not a lesson, it's penance. So,
how much bullshit are you going to drop on a 100-something-year-old man? Can't this guy just fucking just chill and be in peace?
Yeah. Well, he specifically says this is not a lesson, it's penance. So it's pretty clear at this point, Q is angry or mad or insane or delusional or bitter against Picard in some way, which to me is much less interesting than, he's testing humanity or testing Picard to see if they're worthy of their place. He's just, he's insane or angry. Okay, that's not really that interesting.
Yeah.
But Q looks up at the sky, which is smoky and black, and explains, "In your timeline, they found a way to save the planet they were murdering, but here they've just kept it on life support." So we've already got a commentary on global warming. I wrote, just because I wanted to amuse myself, I wrote, "Just then Leonardo DiCaprio walks on screen and sheds a single tear. Camera zooms in on the tear and we see a picture of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez reflected in it." Because it's the most blatant, unsubtle dig at, global warming, or we're ruining the environment. It's like, yeah, we know. What do you want to say?
Q is Greta Thunberg.
Q then says, "How dare you?"
Yes.
And refuses to rejoin the continuum until global warming is solved. Q and Picard walk into the Vineyard's kitchen where there's a bunch of Romulans like cleaning and cooking and stuff like that. And as they walk as Q and Picard walk in, they look kind of afraid, and they sit there and they stand up and rigidly. And Q explains that in this timeline, Picard has alien slaves doing all of his work.
Oh my God! Oh, it's a good thing I didn't watch this episode. Otherwise, I would be doing impressions that are terribly racist. Like, "Oh, how's you doing,
no.
Master Picard?" Yeah. Okay. I better stop.
There goes our Spotify account. So we've got commentary on global warming and slavery in the space of 30 seconds. How fun!
Awesome.
They walk into another room.
Please tell me that they get in the patriarchy.
A little bit later on, maybe. They walk into another room where it's like it gives me the vibes of like an old African trophy hunter room. There's like guns and weapons lining the walls, and then there's on one side of the room there's this display of like skulls, like mounted on like plaques, and so Q walks. There's a bunch of skulls on display. Q walks to a Cardassian skull and says that it belongs to Gul Dukat, who was executed in this reality, and is the reason why Picard has a synthetic body. That's all he says. But apparently, in this reality, Picard executed Gul Dukat.
Okay.
The next skull, he explains, belongs to General Martok, who was defeated in armed combat after a bioengineered virus decimated the Klingon homeworld. The next skull is Director Sarek, who was decapitated on the steps of the Vulcan Science Academy in front of his wife and son. So, characters you know were killed by Picard in this timeline.
Even though Picard never really had any interaction with any of them other than Sarek.
But we know those characters.
Right.
So, yeah. Hugh explains that this is all done by by General Picard of the Galactic Confederacy.
Galactic Confederacy?
Yep.
I want to hear Cartman say Galactic Confederacy.
Is the logo been replaced by the Confederate flag?
Yeah. His ship is now painted up like the General Lee.
Big statues everywhere.
He warps into a wormhole and goes. Picard's getting himself into a lick of trouble again.
The neutral zone is now called the Mason-Dixon zone.
Yeah. That's how unsubtle and blatant the commentary is in this show. Q says, "This is the only life you understand, and that Picard should seek forgiveness, but won't tell him for what." So I don't know what that means. This is the only life you understand, even though Picard, this is not whatever Picard did in this universe is not the Picard we have right now. He's not responsible for it, and that'll be a recurring problem in this episode. Picard then refuses to play his game. After the credits roll, Picard is watching a holo of his alternate self talking about his conquering savage races and destroying alien worlds and increasing humanity's wealth and resources. And his this holo he's watching of himself says, "A safe galaxy is a humanoid galaxy," and they mention human supremacy and whatnot.
Make the Federation great again.
I was shocked they did not say that. He does use the word great, like our great galaxy or something like that. But I am shocked. Honestly, I'm shocked they didn't say, "I have made the galaxy great again."
Were there red and white hats that the general?
I don't get it. He said that a humanoid. What made the galaxy safe again exactly? A humanoid race, or say that again?
A safe galaxy is a human galaxy.
Oh, I thought you said humanoid.
If I did, I was misspeaking. It's human.
Okay, no, that's fine, because I was going to say Vulcans are humanoids. Unless you're killing species that have 4 arms and 4 legs, it's that's not a human. Oh God.
There was a scene later on that I'll talk about where Picard is addressing this crowd of rabid humans, and I was literally looking at every crowd shot. Because I sworn there would be a red hat in there somewhere. I fucking thought they would be so.
Was it at least diverse group of humans?
Yes.
Black, Indian. Okay.
It's still a very diverse future.
At least it's not white man bad.
Well, I guess. I think it's just that they had diversity quotas to fill in the show, so they can't have all white people, or else they wouldn't be nominated for a fucking Emmy or whatever. Right. So anyway, where was I? Oh, his android servant brings him a glass and says, "Your morning usual, sir?" Picard takes a sip and spits it out and says, "What is this?" And I really expected the android to say "Oh, it's Bajoran blood, sir, like you normally drink," or something like that.
Soy and brandy in it.
No, I thought it was going to be, because they're portraying Picard as the most evil man who ever exists, and I thought it was going to be it's Vulcan tears mixed with
baby blood.
Yeah, mixed with Andorian blood or something. But no, he says it's just black coffee. So that was the big reveal. What's Picard drinking other than tea? Oh, it's coffee. Yeah. Oh wow, we're totally in the mirror universe now.
Because evil people drink black coffee.
I guess.
Scourge of
like Catherine Janeway.
Yeah, right. Picard asks about Laris and her husband. Oh, Laris, that's the name of the Romulan woman.
Okay.
Laris and her husband, and the servant tells him they were killed during the Romulan uprising. Harvey, who is the android, I don't know if I mentioned that. Yes. Harvey then tells Picard that he has been summoned to the palace and that it's Eradication Day. And we get a cheesy, dramatic music sting to end the scene. The next scene shows 7 of 9 waking up in bed with a negligee, and I remember briefly what it feels like to be alive. I didn't underline that, but I should have, because that was good. She looks in the mirror, and her occipital implant is gone. A man enters her room and says, "It's Eradication Day, Madam President." So we have a female president, finally, so things can't be all bad in the future.
Yeah, living up to the universe when you put a woman in church. Smash the patriarchy, eh?
Yes. Girls, get it done. If by getting it done you mean genocide.
Yeah.
So her aide then briefs her on the day and casually drops the name General Sisko. Just one throwaway line.
Yeah.
But I know who that is.
Jake.
Jake, yeah. 7 orders her aide to get her Captain Rios, and then the scene is over. So in this scene, I didn't mention it, but she's confused over what's going on, but she is 7 from our universe transported into the body of 7 from the alternate timeline or whatever. And she's confused, and she looks up Rios and says, "Get me Captain Rios." Meanwhile, in space, Rios is in combat with several Vulcan ships. One of his crew members says some racist shit about Vulcans because racism. 7 calls Rios and confirms they are both confused over what is happening. Suddenly, we cut to Okinawa on Earth, and buildings start exploding, and we see Eleanor and someone else who explains to Eleanor that the revolution is happening. So apparently there's like a resistance on Earth, whatever. Eleanor is then chased by soldiers until he runs into Raffi, who is disguised as some sort of SS officer type. She has no choice but to hand him over to soldiers. After the commercial break, 7 of 9 is talking to her aide again, and it's hinted at that they are married. It's not fully said, but it's confirmed later. They are supposedly husband and wife. The aide/husband explains that Eradication Day is when the Authority eliminates all rebels, dissidents, and terrorists. But my question is, if this is like a Nazi-esque fascist government, why wouldn't they be doing that every day?
Right.
So like they just let dissidents and terrorists run wild, and like when they're caught by the cops, they go, "Oh, you're lucky it's not an extermination day."
Well, maybe they make like a big show out of it or something.
Well, they do. Sorry, go ahead.
I can explain this, because if you do it every day, it becomes less special.
True.
It's like Christmas.
We will learn later on that they do have a specific big execution that's happening on Extermination Day, but he specifically says that it's like, I don't know if he says it's an annual holiday or it's the day that it's the day where every year we execute dissidents or whatever.
This is starting to feel like an episode of Sliders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never watched the show, but I from what I know, it's fairly accurate.
Yeah.
He tells 7 that Agnes is prepping, or Dr. Girardi, which is Agnes, is prepping the last of their greatest enemy for execution.
Well, it is her thing, right?
Yeah, she's good at it. Agnes wakes
She's going to
up.
feel right at home here.
We cut to Agnes. She wakes up at her desk, and there's a screen where a cartoon cat, voiced by Patton Oswalt, is talking to her.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
Did it denounce Dave Chappelle?
Yeah. And he's talking to her about how executions are needless displays of authority. It's revealed that in this timeline, she programmed this like little cat avatar to be like her virtual pet or something. But immediately it takes you out of it because it's obviously Patton Oswalt voicing it. And guess what? Can you guys guess what the name of the virtual cat pet's name is?
Data.
Nope.
No, Spot.
Cat's name is Spot 73.
Oh my god.
Because reference. Yes.
See, I'm
thriving.
I'm not even watching the episode, and I want to kill myself. Oh my god! There's got to be a gun around here somewhere. This is Alberta.
7 enters and tries to hint to Agnes that they're in danger, but Agnes doesn't let on because she's too stupid and doesn't catch on, almost blowing their cover. So 7 is trying to like communicate slyly to Agnes, because the husband character is there too, that like, we have to pretend, like she's like, "Oh, Dr. Girardi, you remember me, right? The president?" And she's like, "Oh," and she like immediately calls her 7 of 9. She's like, "Oh, 7 of 9. I'm so glad you're here. And the husband's like, what? And she's like she doesn't get the situation they're in.
Yeah.
She's too stupid to understand that, like, we're different people here. We need to, and this is like, we're basically Nazis in this universe. We have to pretend. But she's like, oh, 7 of 9. Where was the Stargazer? We were just there. Shut the fuck up. She's supposed to be like a brilliant scientist, but she just acts like a fucking clown in this show now. Anyway, oh, there's the cat's food dropping. Oh yeah, I just wrote she acts like she's in Ghostbusters 2016 because that's really how she acts in this show. Seven's husband wants to inspect the prisoner, and the big reveal is that the prisoner is the Borg Queen. Not the Borg Queen from the last episode that we saw on the bridge, but the classic-looking Borg Queen. She looks like Alice Krieg or Susanna Thompson.
So the one from Voyager or the one from the movie?
More like the one from the movie, but that design of the Borg Queen.
Gotcha.
You know. Anyway, the Queen refers to Seven as... Okay, the Queen is like... She's clearly like confused and like she's like glitching, like she doesn't know where she is, and she's like constantly referring to things that are weird. The Queen then refers to 7 of 9 as simply tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. She says, you must help me, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. But since the writers don't understand what Borg designations are, that would be like me referring to Bubs as Windsor or referring to Schweitzer as Calgary. Yeah. It's like, no, her name is 7 of 9. It's like saying Bubs of Windsor. Yes. Tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01 is like the unit she's assigned to. But the writers don't know that, so they call her simply tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. Yeah. It seems the Borg Queen is aware that the timeline has been altered. It's made pretty clear. They even say something like, the Seven basically looks into the camera and says, the Queen can tell when timelines have been altered.
Wink.
Yeah. Which I guess is a thing... Was that ever established before? Like,
no.
The Borg have time travel capabilities because of First Contact, but it's never been established that the Queen can see alternate timelines.
No, she can't. Otherwise, oh God.
So we're about half done now. This episode's going a little faster. Picard is now at the palace, which is, I guess, what they call the big seat of the Confederacy, and sees Eleanor being brought in by Raffi as a prisoner. Picard orders Raffi and Eleanor to follow him. They meet up with Seven, and Raffi refers to Seven's husband as Magistrate, even though this is the first time she's seen him and has no idea who he is or what his job title is. She magically knows he's the Magistrate. Just lazy, sloppy writing. Yeah. Seven explains that there was a divergent in time, and Picard says, of course, that's why he did it. This isn't another reality, it's our reality. He went back in time and changed the present. First off, he says that's how he did it. You can do anything. Yeah. Like, he's like, wow, like Picard was wondering how Q did this. Like, Q can do literally anything, and you know that. Why would you be wondering how he did it? He snapped his fingers and it happened. That's how Q works. Second, just because Q went back in time to change the present still means that it's of his own creation. What difference does it make? Picard still isn't responsible for any of this. Yeah. Whether it's a different timeline or another reality, what difference does it make? So, like, they make a big deal of this scene where Picard is like, oh, that's how he did it. He didn't make a new reality. He altered our reality. But if Q goes back in time to alter your reality, it makes it a different reality. So what's the fucking point? And throughout this I haven't really mentioned it, but throughout this episode, there's a few lines where Picard says, like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I'm disgusted with who I've become in this universe. And I kept, like, shouting at the screen, like, this is not your fault. You are Picard from the timeline we know. Whatever Picard did in this timeline, it's not you. Why are you feeling guilty for any of this? It's not, like, I would have said...
Same reason why he was responsible for everything in the first season.
Yeah. Like, if I would have Picard, I would have said, like, to Q, like, no, I'm not playing your game. I didn't do any of this. You did this. This is not a lesson I need to learn because I didn't do this. Yeah. And it's mentioned in a scene coming up where Q specifically went back in time and changed one thing, and that like butterfly effect made this future happen. But it's still Q doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know why Picard has this guilt over what the future has become. It's not him. That really annoyed me. Picard then says, "For my knowledge of Q, he won't undo what he's done until we've passed some kind of test. But Q's already said it's not a test; it's penance."
Right.
So, like, Picard forgets exactly what he said, and now it would be. I think it would be actually a more sinister and frightening line if Picard said, like, normally Q would make me pass a test to set everything right, but Q's made it clear this is not a test. Q is just being, Q is just being violent. Q is just being a dick here, and that makes it scary.
Yeah.
Because at least when Q did things like this before, it was to teach Picard a lesson, and Picard could get out of it. Now, Q's just being malevolent, and a malevolent Q is just about the most threatening thing possible.
Yes. How do you fight that?
Right, but they didn't do that. It's, from my knowledge, he won't undo what he's done until we pass some kind of test. Oh, so there's hope. It would be more scary and more threatening if Picard basically said, like, I don't know what we can do because there's no way out of this. Q's just being a dick. We're back in the lab with the Queen and Agnes now, and the gang all meet up. Agnes, I wrote at this point on, I misspelled Eleanor as Elron, and then I just started calling him other names. So Agnes and Elron hug like 8-year-olds on the playground because they're like besties now. Oh my God, Elron, you're here! Oh, it's so great that you're here. Like,
bring your sword.
His character from season 1 is already completely forgotten. He's no longer an orphan child raised by a strict order of nuns. He's a giggling schoolgirl now. Picard asks the Queen how the timeline was changed, and she reveals that Q changed one thing back in 2024 Los Angeles because it's cheap to film there. She tells Picard to go there and seek a watcher. That's what she says.
Wait, how does he know the thing changed in 2024?
The Queen tells him that.
Oh, okay.
Because the Queen can see all reality. So the Queen says that Q... The Queen is, I guess, knows who Q is. And so it knows that he changed one thing in 2024 Los Angeles, but doesn't know what that one thing is.
So she's like Pickles in that episode of Futurama with the police balls and shit. You remember that one?
Police balls?
You remember when Fry becomes a cop?
Yes.
No.
And, it was like the 6th season, and they have like this hybrid robot with a human brain or something like that predict crime. And it had, like,
the Minority Report episode.
Yeah. It had like the little balls that come out, and it would be like murder and clownicide, and yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Pickles is telling him he's got to go back to 2024.
Basically. She tells Picard to go there and seek a watcher. Whatever that means. I assume
Buffy?
She's... What?
Like from Buffy? Like Giles was Buffy's watcher?
Maybe. I thought she was talking about Guinan, but he's already talked to Guinan.
Right.
I don't know. Whatever. They're setting up the mystery box for later episodes. They determine that the Queen can help them go back in time, and she agrees. They just say that. Like, the Queen has time travel capabilities. They just basically say that. Like, oh, okay. Like, they did it in First Contact, but they had, like, cubes and resources. Like, this is just the Queen. Like, oh, I guess she can go back in time, though. And if the Queen had the personal ability to go back in time at any time, the whole galaxy would have been assimilated a long time ago. Like, I never liked it in Star... I kind of like First Contact, but I never liked it, the fact that they gave the Borg time travel abilities. Because if the Enterprise hadn't gone through the time rift at the exact moment, the future would have been assimilated, and, like, was there only one Borg ship that was able to go through time at that one moment? Like, if they have time travel, that's, like, the most devastating thing for the entire universe.
And why did that sphere have to be right next to the Earth during a battle when that happened? Why couldn't they have done that, like, anywhere and then just travel to Earth in the past?
Well, I actually have a theory about that. My theory is that the Borg were initially going to simply assimilate Earth right then and there, but because the Enterprise showed up and helped destroy the cube, they had to change their plans on the fly. And it's like, all right, guess what? Initiate protocol, our secondary protocol. Initiate the chronoton waves and go back to this point.
But if that's easier to do, why get in the battle in the first place? Why would that be plan B?
Their overconfidence. Because what did they tell you? What did they tell you? Resistance is futile.
Yeah. My point is, giving the Borg
plot holes are inevitable.
Giving the Borg Queen time travel powers, it just opens a whole new universe of plot holes. Yes. Where am I? She told. Oh yeah. Sorry, it's that podcast. Oh yeah. So Rios tries to beam them to the ship, but it doesn't work. Right after he tries, a lockdown is then sounded. Seven says they've initiated a palace-wide lockdown. It was in my security brief. Well, then why did you tell Rios to beam you out? Like, she tells Rios, beam us out of here. He does, and then immediately the beam out is canceled, and then the security goes off, and the building goes into lockdown. And she's like, "Oh, it's a security lockdown. It was in my security brief." So you just forgot? You just forgot and told Rios to beam you out? Like, Seven is smarter than this. Ugh.
More apparently. She then
says all transporting has been deactivated. But the transport was initiated from the ship. So they can't like she says that in like Rios tried to beam them out. She says, "Oh, all transporting has now been deactivated." Well, Rios is in the ship. That's a transporter that's in orbit, right? She should have said, and if the writers knew anything about Star Trek tech, she should have said that they've erected a dampening field.
Yep.
Around the palace, but the writers don't understand the tech of Star Trek. The lockdown procedure then isolates the Borg Queen, and then we go to commercial. And this is the last scene, I promise. Coming back from commercial, Seven tells Picard that she's scheduled to execute the Queen on stage in front of a crowd. There's an extremely cringe comedy scene with Agnes. That's all I wrote. I don't remember what the scene was. Maybe my brain has blocked it out. And then we see the stage for the execution. It looks almost identical to the First Order iconography from Star Wars. So it's like he's on the stage, and there's like flags, and they're black and white, like the First Order. It's like it's clearly reminiscent of Nazi imagery.
Right.
The crowd literally is cheering "blood, blood, blood" as Picard and Seven take the stage. Seven gives a speech about human supremacy, and the Borg Queen is revealed as the crowd chants, "Kill, kill, kill." Agnes uses her tech skills, finally, to contact Rios' ship again, and Raffi does something using Elrond as a distraction. It turns out that Agnes is supposed to get transporters back online, and Raffi is supposed to get shields down. That's their thing. It's at this point I'm thinking, like, yeah, executions are barbaric, but are we supposed to feel bad for the human defeat over the Borg? If this was like an execution of a Vulcan or a Bajoran or an Andorian, I would feel different, but I don't have a lot of sympathy for the Borg. Like, I get it, we're supposed to, like if we remember back to the Hugh episode, like, oh, the Borg are a race too, they have the right to live. Like, yeah, but we don't really feel bad when Borg get killed. Like, I don't have a lot of sympathy for, we're finally killing the Borg Queen. Okay, I don't care. I don't feel bad for her.
It'd be one thing if it was revealed that in this timeline the Borg were trying to make peace, or they were trying to bring something, like the Borg are completely different, and they're trying to unify humanity or something, but I don't know. It's just lazy.
Yeah. Rios and Agnes have an extremely cringy argument because we are supposed to remember they're a couple, even though they have nothing in common and have no chemistry together. So they do this thing where, like, Rios is on the ship and they're talking, and Agnes he's like, you need to get the transporters back. Oh, you're always nagging me about stuff. It's like, do we really have to have this conversation here? It's like, you need to work on your communication skills. And it's literally that, back and forth.
God, it's that same shit with, like, Spock and Uhura in one of the new Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're. Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like lighthearted and fun, but it's just really fucking annoying. And again, the characters aren't taking the threat seriously.
No.
This is a minor annoyance, but Agnes threatens to hang up on Rios, which I think is the writers forgetting that this is a future where literally nobody says hang up anymore.
Nobody even says that now.
No, I know, but no one's ever said that in Star Trek. Raffi gets the shields down. Oh, so Raffi does the gag from Star Wars where she brings Eleanor in handcuffs, like, I'm bringing the prisoner to the jail cell or whatever.
Yeah.
And then whatever, and then Raffi gets the shields down and then says, okay, Eleanor, do your thing. And then Eleanor starts violently murdering people for no reason. Like he's fighting guards, which fine, but he literally is like, he shoots them. Some of them he like slices their throats open. Like, it's really fucking brutal. And then Raffi, after he like literally slices people's throats. Literally, Raffi looks over her shoulder like, "Oh, you." Like, she gives him like an, "Oh, you." That's Eleanor.
That's what they're teaching in the Starfleet Academy now, eh?
Yeah, apparently.
That rigorous psychological profile.
Yeah. So the threat is that Raffi and Agnes need to drop shields and get transporters working before the execution happens, and they're taking too long. But the work they're doing is just tapping at the screen and saying, "I'm going as fast as I can," so there's no tension because they're not doing anything. Right. It's just the scene where, like, Agnes needs to get the shields down, so she's, like, tapping at a computer screen, and Raffi's like, Agnes is transporters, and Raffi's like, "I need to get the shields down." She's, like, tapping at a computer screen. In TNG, they would be running around, like, Geordi would be like, "I need to decouple the phase thing," and he'd bring out, like, a tool and start working at things, and, like, Riker would have to crawl through a Jeffries tube to realign a phase coil. But, like, that takes effort, I guess, so they just tap computer screens, and there's no tension at all, because we know they're not actually doing anything. Yeah. It's just, it's meant to have a pointless ticking clock so that we can feel tension, even though there's no tension. They can just, eventually, spoilers, they just say, "Oh, I did it!" And then the transporters are on.
Yay.
Yeah, there's no tension. It's just really lazy. It's so lazy. Yeah, I wrote, "There's no tension because they're not doing anything. It's the laziest writing. It just makes them tap screens for an arbitrary amount of time until there's enough fake tension to resolve the conflict." The crowd gets restless at the execution to the point where Picard turns on the Confederate soldiers on stage and murders them with a phaser that looks just like a pistol. Agnes gets the transporters working and shouts, "How do you like that shit?"
Of course she does.
Yes. They all transport out with the Queen and onto the ship. Agnes says, "Well, that was all kinds of terrible." Even though, from her perspective, she was just in a room working on a computer and didn't see what was happening on stage. Rios tells Raffi to set deflector shields to maximum. And this is a question that I wanted to ask Schweitzer. Throughout this episode, they've referred to their shields as deflector shields. Now, aren't shields and deflector shields two different things?
Yes, they are. The deflectors are supposed to help clear stuff like space debris and other stuff that could, like, hit the deflector dish and stuff like that. The shields are actually to protect, from weapons fire in the hull.
I'm glad you confirmed that, because that's what I noted. I said, Rios tells Raffi to set deflector shields to maximum, but the deflector shields just push things out of the way during warp flight. You should say set shields to maximum. So the writers don't understand the basic tech.
No, they don't.
They don't know that there's deflector shields and regular shields. They don't. That's like basic.
Just go fucking read through the goddamn technical manual. Take you like 20 minutes.
Yeah, or go on Memory Alpha, like the Wikipedia for Star Trek. It's minor. Like, it's minor saying deflector shields versus shields, but this
isn't even necessarily a writer problem, because I'm sure even in, like, original Trek, the writers would write a story and then they'd have their own team come in and go, "Okay, we got it." Because I even remember seeing breakdowns of how they wrote scripts, and then they just leave brackets techno babble.
Yeah.
And then the producers or the main head writers in charge would put all that stuff in. So it seems like they just don't have people doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's a minor complaint, but it's symbolic of a bigger problem.
Yes.
Where it's just the writers don't care about Trek canon. Like, it's simple stuff that fans recognize.
It's just some schlocky action show that's using Star Trek as
basically
is just taking it for a ride as a means of transportation.
So Agnes decides that she needs to connect the Queen to the main array, whatever that is. And she wheels the Queen, because the Queen's on this, like, anti-grav thing. I forgot to mention, it doesn't really matter, but the Queen is just her upper torso. She doesn't have legs.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. But she like wheels the Queen over to the wall and, like, pries off a panel and pulls out a cord and plugs the Queen into the ship. Because apparently that's all you need to do.
I guess, the ports are the same, right?
You just gotta plug her in.
Yeah.
To the main array.
USB-C.
Yeah.
Didn't need an adapter or anything.
She should have put it in, and then, like, oh shit, she pulls it out and flips it upside down and puts it back in. That'd be funny. So they don't even know how the Queen plans to travel in time yet. They just immediately get on the ship, and it's like, we need to plug her in so we can go back in time. They just completely 100% trust the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
There's like a line earlier that I did mention where they said like, "Oh, Borg Queen, would you rather live in this timeline or one where the Borg still exists? You need to help us to get back to that timeline." The Borg Queen's like, "Yeah, okay, that's it." They fully trust her to plug her into the ship now. Whatever. The ship then says, "Presidential override, deflectors disabled." And then the Seven's husband beams on with the security team. So even though he's not the president, apparently he can do the presidential override.
First lady powers.
And then the actual line is presidential override, deflectors disabled. They don't even say deflector shield. They say deflectors disabled. So again, they don't know what fucking deflectors are. So Seven's husband beams on board, shoots Elmo, and holds a gun to Picard, declares him a traitor. And that's the end of the episode. Finally.
Oh my god.
What was that shit?
So we've got Picard and his team, and they're in this alternate history, and they have to, I guess they're going back in time to find out to modern day Los Angeles, our modern day Los Angeles, to find what Q changed and changed it back.
2024 must be an election.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, it's pretty much what I predicted, that this is basically, I predicted there'd be like a Trump surrogate, and I guess maybe they're making Picard as the Trump surrogate, or maybe we haven't met him yet, but it's basically that. It's just this.
It's gonna be his ancestor or some shit.
They're definitely teasing the fact that in this timeline, Q changed one thing, and it made Picard turn into this dictator. And I'm wondering, it maybe has something to do with his mother. Like in this timeline, Q made it so that Picard's mother didn't die or abandon him, and that set him on this trajectory. Or Q's, I'm guessing it's something to do with his mother.
Had an affair with Donald Trump.
Yeah, maybe something like that. But that's the world we've set up. Again, like I said, there's nothing hopeful in this. There's no grand vision of the future. This is literally writers who spend all their days on Twitter complaining about politics, crafting this world to say, this is what it's like in modern day. This is what we are, even though it's like nothing like what we are. But this is their envision of, this is Donald Trump's Starfleet, basically. Like they don't, it's so blatant.
Donald Trump's Federation.
Like I'm fine with writing like an alternate history of what might happen if someone like Donald Trump became, president for life or whatever. If you do it in a subtle way where it doesn't feel like you're being preached to, I'm fine with that. But this is literally hitting you over the head with like the global warming shit and the slavery shit, and this is Trump's America shit. It's really annoying. And I know this was written, I think mostly, if not completely, pre-pandemic or early pandemic, something like that. I know it was written like right after Picard 1 was created. So, but you think maybe after like Donald Trump's been out of office for like a year or so, they might calm down on the Trump stuff. But no, they just double down on it.
John Luke, we have to get back to the future.
Anyway, that's episode 1 and 2 of Picard. I have to say, it was horrible watching it. It's terrible. There's almost nothing I liked about it. But it was kind of fun watching it and writing and like taking you guys through it to sort of explain why it's so bad. So
a bad episode of TNA.
Yeah, I'm not dreading watching. We joke about it, about killing myself and whatnot. But I'm not dreading going back to season 3. Now, to be fair, if I wasn't reviewing this for the show, I would hate watching it. But the fact that I'm sitting at my computer with it in like a window on my monitor and my notepad open and like taking notes as I'm going, so that I can communicate it to you guys in a humorous way, it's not painful.
Oh,
That's
that
good.
was fun.
Bubs is in the I gotta go take a piss position.
Yes.
We apologize for the interruption. Please remain with us while Bubs takes a whiz. We apologize for the interruption. Please remain with us while Bubs takes a whiz. Bubs is now empty. We now return to the Basement Vagrants podcast.
So, gonna give my vocal cords a rest for a bit because I just talked for like fucking 2 hours. Schweitzer, you want to take us through the Deep Space Nine Season 3 episode Defiant?
No, I don't.
Okay, well that's it for this episode of the Basement Dragon podcast.
Okay, no. So the episode kicks off DS9, and it looks like everybody is bringing their problems straight to Major Kira Nerys, who is just not having the best day at the moment. Starfleet wants all these new reports about their computer subroutines of all things, and they want it like, oh, we need this tomorrow. It's like, why are you bringing this to her now? And why is Starfleet so impatient about this stuff? Can't they just like, hey, we need this by next week?
Well, they are
like,
on
nope.
the edge of war, though.
No, it's season 3. It's kind of like they're in a state of Cold War, if you will.
I will say, right when this episode starts off, and Dax says to Kira, like, Starfleet wants an update on our computer subroutine maintenance diagnostics. I'm like, oh, after watching 2 episodes of Picard, I'm like, oh, technobabble. It literally felt refreshing. It's like, oh, we got military structure, protocol, technobabble. Oh, I'm home again.
Doesn't DS9 just put you in a nice warm place?
Yes.
Not as much as TNG does, because there's still a lot of violence and hardships in DS9, but yeah, it really felt like, oh, it feels so
It's like a warm blanket.
It is. Sometimes I'll just put on an episode of TNG and sit back and just like, it feels like a nice warm cup of Earl Grey. Like, it feels good.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this is so nice. It's so relaxing. New Trek is just miserable all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot heroin into my eyeball.
Okay, keep going, Schweitzer. Come on.
Yeah, okay, so she goes to Dr. Bashir, who wants a runabout so he can get some medical supplies from Vulcan for a new colony, but Kira at this point is at the breaking point, and she says, you know what, fuck them colonists, and I think she says, they can get by with a box of Band-Aids for all I care.
Yeah.
And she storms out of sickbay, but Bashir's like, hold it right there, Major.
Yeah, he snaps at her pretty hard.
He snaps at her pretty hard, which I kind of like, and then he starts asking her, like, when was your last day off? She can't remember. And he immediately says, guess what? You're off duty. And she's at first, you can't tell me I'm off duty. And he says, yes, I can. And not even Commander Sisko can override my authority as chief medical officer. And then you start to see the panic set in on her face.
Yeah, she's immediately like trying to ingratiate herself to him.
Yeah, look, Julian, I mean, I snapped a little bit. But you also get the idea, it's like, this is a person who's a bit too invested in her work. It's all she's got. And I think that's something that all of us can relate to at one point. It's kind of like, look, we are doing a good job and we want to keep going. But it's like sometimes like it just gets to you too much. And yeah, so he says, guess what? You're off duty. And he sends her to Quarks. And I'm trying to remember. I think I wrote down the things that he had given her. One, Carvino juice, Lorvin crackers. It's like you're trying to cheer somebody up with frickin' crackers. I hope they're salted. But who knows? Like maybe that's something of a better delicacy from another planet. Who knows? A holosuite program, which is like, okay, but make it a relaxing one. It better not be like
Part 6.
Yeah, like it better not be like a Cardassian bar fight or whatever. Otherwise, Kira's never going to leave that holosuite. And also, this was the a Jumja stick, which I've always kind of wondered. It's like, I wonder what those taste like. Are they tart? Are they sweet? I can't remember.
Well, they're made of sap from the Jumja tree, so I always assumed they were like maybe a maple flavor or something like that. That was just my headcanon anyway.
Oh, yeah. Infused with a fruit of like your choice, either way. And gambling tokens, which I thought Quark is giving somebody gambling tokens. But then I kind of thought, wait a minute. It's not Latinum he's giving her. They're gambling tokens. Right. So she could win like $20 million worth of gambling tokens, and Quark will be like, congratulations, you qualify for 1.5 slips of full press Latinum.
Yeah,
congratulations. Bucks. Yeah, the quark bucks.
Basically.
And so Julian tells her like, look, you have to use 2 of these, and you have to enjoy yourself before you leave. And Quark says, I'll be giving you a full report on her activities, Doctor. And you gotta believe rather that Quark is just absolutely enjoying this small bit of power he has over Kira. Although then I started to realize I feel bad for Armin Shimmerman. 4 hours in the makeup chair. It's like, okay, Armin, this is all we got for you.
He's on screen for like a minute and a half. Yeah, I never thought about that. 4 hours of makeup.
30 seconds of screen time for like after 4 hours in the makeup chair. It's like, oh, we hope you don't mind coming in at 5 a.m. But like filming starts at 9.
Although,
whatever, he just made $50,000 for that episode.
Yeah.
Although, if they were smart, they would have filmed that scene during the filming of like the Magnificent Ferengi or something like that.
You never know.
Yeah, exactly.
While he's already in the makeup. Oh, we have this scene for this other episode with Quark in it. Do it now.
Yeah.
No. Sure would have just saved a lot of time. He would have said take 5 and flick the bean, but hey.
Yeah.
And one of the things he gives her next to the Lorcan crackers is a Bajoran vibrator.
Well,
Had Miles supercharge it as well.
The Doctor did say to enjoy yourself. So she starts to take a drink of her Carvito juice. She looks like she's actually starting to relax, and then you hear her voice say, well, it looks like you've got your evening all planned. I hope you've got room for the unexpected. The camera pans, and it's one William T. Riker.
The man himself.
Or is it?
So we cut to it's obviously the next day or something, and it looks like Quark must have reported into Julian because she's back on duty. She seems a bit more relaxed. Obviously, I'm skipping the part where Will's in Cisco's office, explain that he's just there on his way to Ryza, but he'd stop by for
trips.
Yeah.
Probably has a condo there.
Oh God, who wouldn't? Yeah. But the last time he was there, he actually spent a few hours at Quark's. He had a date with one of the Dabo girls, and he had won a whole bunch of money, and he's back to try his luck again before heading on the way to Ryza. And Kira's a lot more relaxed, more happier, and you notice that she says, Dax asks, so who's in Cisco's office? And she says, oh, it's Will. Commander Will Riker from the Enterprise, and then it turns out that she reveals that they met at Quark's and they spent the whole evening chatting, and chatting is actually the Bajoran word for fucking.
Yeah, I love that aspect of Jadzia's character, how she's very sexually free and open. I mean, it makes sense. She's lived 8 lives. She's probably banged 700 people. But it helps her character be really attractive. You really love Jadzia Daxon.
Free spirit.
She's a perfect free spirit. I love the fact that in this world of Star Trek where characters tend to seem sexually repressed, she's banging guys with transparent skulls and stuff. Mm-hmm. Captain Baudet.
Yes. No. Yeah, of course. So Riker leaves the office. He's arranging to have dinner with Cisco and Jake, and he runs into Dax, who apparently loaned him some money when his winning streak ran a little dry last time at Quark's. And you can kind of tell that him and Kira make eyes just before he leaves. So as Kira's off duty, she bumps into Will Riker again, and he says, why don't we go on a little tour of the station, and why don't you show me that that new ship you have? What's it called? The Defiant. Mm-hmm. So we go to
I get it.
Well, we're going to find out that it has a double meaning. But either way, so we actually get a little. It seems minor at first, but we see that they have to pass an identity scanner to get aboard the Defiant. I get because it's under guard even when it's not being used because you have that cloaking device, and this is a heavily fortified battleship naturally, so you've got to be careful.
Later in the episode, they refer to the Defiant as a warship. I never really saw the Defiant as a warship. No, it's kind of small and.
But that's the
But
whole.
Cisco's-
it was built
yeah.
for the purpose of fighting the
But
Borg.
but I don't know. It just never seemed like a warship to me. Like an
Cisco's-
Excelsior, like a what's the ship that's really long with the huge warp nacelles? Can't remember the class. I don't know. It just it's
like a Constitution class?
No, it's an Excelsior class maybe. I don't
Either
remember,
way,
but it never seemed to me like a warship. It's too small.
Oh, it always came.
Oh, yeah. No,
because they even made several claims that like, oh, this thing is just built as one giant weapon, a giant gun. Like they even sacrificed creature comforts like the crew quarters and the cafeteria and all that. It's essentially a big gun that can fly.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Maybe I just kept judging it by its size because it's definitely a smaller ship.
I mean, I'm going to go back to that briefing from the beginning of season 3. Cisco says there are no science labs, no luxuries, no families. It's just built to fight, and that's why it's so small, because you have to, like Cisco or O'Brien says, it has an unusual power signature for a ship this size, because you would want some, more maneuverable, and you would want that if it's built to fight. Either way, Either way, so they go in on the bridge, they run into Chief O'Brien, and for some reason, O'Brien's acting a bit cold. He says, there's nothing to say to you, O'Brien. I think you know why. And it's kind of like, oh, like what's all this about?
Yeah, that made no sense to me. What was that about?
If I had a theory, because guess what? We're spoiling the whole episode anyway, but we find out that this is not William Riker later on, but Thomas Riker,
right,
who was a clone made from a transporter accident. Now, maybe he knew that, oh, God, this is Chief O'Brien, who was a transporter chief. And, like, it was a transporter chief that got me left on, what's it called? Planet.
No, I think it's more simple than that. It's just that it's because O'Brien who knows William Riker, so O'Brien could easily blow his cover, because what if O'Brien wants to start reminiscing about something happened on the Enterprise? Thomas Riker wouldn't know that.
But so O'Brien acted shocked, like Riker said that to him. Why wouldn't O'Brien start saying, why wouldn't you say, like, I don't really know what you're talking about? Why would you...
Because it was Riker's intention to make him flustered and uncomfortable, to get him to leave, just to get him to leave. So
that's what I thought. Yeah.
I don't know. If somebody who said that to me, though, I'd still question, like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah,
I don't understand, sir. Why are you saying this to me like this?
Here's how I see it. Number one, Chief O'Brien is going to be like, okay, the commander is saying this to me. I'm just a chief petty officer. I'm not even going to start anything. I'm just going to leave. Number two, Riker's mission is to steal the Defiant. It's going to be a lot harder if he has to stun both Chief O'Brien and Major Kira.
I know, but to me, it's O'Brien's reaction. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
It would have been easier for Thomas Riker to just have said, "Oh, O'Brien, it's great to see you. Look, we'll have a drink in Quarks later and catch up but right now I want this tour of the Defiant." And that would have been easier. I understand what they were going through for, trying to make O'Brien awkward and uncomfortable, like wondering, like, "Oh, why is he mad at me?" But that plan would have had more chance to backfire than just saying, "Hey, I'll talk to you later, O'Brien."
But as a viewer, I'm just only wondering, like, why?
Yeah.
Because without O'Brien reacting, now it makes me think, well, did O'Brien do something to it?
Yeah, I understand the point of the scene. I just think it's a little bit too convoluted.
Or I thought, well, maybe because O'Brien was there when the Thomas Riker thing happened, but he wasn't there when the Thomas Riker thing happened.
Yeah, exactly. That didn't even involve that whole accident didn't even involve the Enterprise.
So then how would Thomas Riker then even really know who Chief O'Brien is?
Well, that he probably has a briefing. It's kind of like, look, you've got to be ready for this.
Yes.
I didn't have a problem with it. I understand your concerns, but I didn't have a problem.
It's a minor thing, but it's still weird to me. Anyway.
Either way, so O'Brien leaves, and Kira even asks, like, what was that all about? And Riker just says, oh, it's a long story. I'd rather not get into it. Yeah.
Again, sorry to harp on this, but if he would have just said, like, yeah, O'Brien, we'll catch up later, it wouldn't have prompted any kind of reaction from Major Kira. So now Kira's curious about, like, what the hell was that? Mm-hmm. So that further kind of puts his plan in jeopardy. So, yeah, it's a little bit weird. Anyway.
So we find out, like, they go into explaining some things about the Defiant, like cutting through the plasma relays have powered or given extra power to the phasers. and it basically a bunch of techno jargon. But Riker goes to examine a console, but there's a computer lockout, and it's a new security override. But Kira unlocks the bridge lockout, and as soon as that happens, like the whole bridge lights up, the ship's active, ready to go, and Riker, it looks like he pulls a phaser right out of his ass.
Where did he have it?
Yeah, it's like where was that exactly? Like hidden in the small of his back, hidden in his butt cheeks, who knows? But he pulls it out, stuns her, and back on ops, or sorry, no, he beams aboard two people who I found out these two members of the Maquis, they got married a few years later.
In real life?
In real life, they met. They met each other during the dating, and he said, unfortunately, like a lot of the scenes filming was just between Tom Riker, and Kira. So we got to know each other because we weren't under heavy layers of makeup, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen.
Oh,
it's kind of like, it's like Star Trek, bring people together.
They're still together to this day.
As far as I know, they are.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
See. Two terrorists meet each other and fall in love.
Kira and Bashir also got together in real life, but that didn't end so
No,
well.
they got divorced, but at the same time, like it was briefly mentioned during the documentary, so it's kind of like it's not like they're bitter over it. And that is good. So up on ops, red alert is triggered because they're getting unusual readings from the warp core on the Defiant, and it looks like it's going to explode in less than a minute. Thomas Riker hails, and he says, there's been an accident with the warp core. Major Kira has been injured. Release the docking clamps. I'm going to use the thrusters to get us away. But as O'Brien attempts to beam them out, they see, hey, the Defiant's shields are still up, and it goes into warp, leaving everybody wondering what the hell just happened. Mm-hmm. So when they go into warp, Riker orders, okay, laying a course for the Badlands, warp 7, and Riker does the most shocking thing that we've ever seen him do. He peels off his sideburns.
This fucking made me laugh.
It does. As a kid, I remember as a kid being like, what's going on? And
Riker, I thought I told you to trim those sideburns.
So this was ultimate disguise.
Yeah.
And the thing that differentiates him from Will Riker is fucking fake sideburns. That he couldn't have just grown. Like he couldn't have just took the 2 weeks and grew the fucking thing. He'd been away from the Federation probably for months, if not a year, with the Maquis, planning all this out. He couldn't have just grew the fucking sideburns. No, he had to have fake ones for the big reveal.
They should have done this in a scene with Kira, and Kira goes to her and says, Will, what are you doing? And then he peels him off, and she goes, you're not Will Riker. Like it was the sideburns tricking them all along.
Let's find out who this Riker really is.
Winner.
It's old man Thomas.
Now, I want to mention, Schweitzer, is this the first time we've seen Thomas Riker since that episode?
This is the first time we've seen Thomas Riker since that episode, although originally we were supposed to see a lot more of Thomas Riker, because the original plan for that the original plan for that TNG episode where he shows up, Will Riker was supposed to have been killed. Data was supposed to be the first officer afterwards, and Thomas Riker was to take up the position at Ops.
Oh, that would have been a bad idea.
Yeah, that would have been very
weird.
unnecessary.
It would have been, especially for Will Riker, this guy who was always slated to become captain, saved the Federation from the Borg, and now it's like, he just gets killed in some accident, and now we've got his clone who, even though he's been locked away, not stored, but rather he's been on this planet alone for the past 7 years. He's qualified to become the new ops officer for the flagship of the ship. Or of the Federation, why not?
Yeah, it'd be like putting that B2 or whatever the fuck robot was in Data's place after Insurrection.
Oh, yeah, before. Yeah.
Or for Nemesis.
Or
but
not quite as bad, but when alternate universe Harry took over regular Harry's spot.
At least that was a direct clone of Harry.
Right.
With all the knowledge and experience of Harry.
Yeah.
Like he didn't spend the last 20 years, marooned on a planet.
And it would have been, it just seems like it would have been so unnecessary to do really what he's
Yeah.
getting in the end.
Now I never saw this episode as it aired because I don't think I was watching Star Trek at the time, but I imagine the reveal that it was Thomas Riker, not Will Riker, would have been pretty shocking because it's like I said, this is the first time that Thomas Riker has appeared since his initial episode, and probably a lot of people would have thought, oh, that was just a one-off, he's never going to come back again. So it probably would have been quite a shock.
It was slightly shocking, but you kind of had a feeling, like as soon as he turned on Kira, you kind of.
But did you think, oh, it must be Thomas Riker?
As soon as he pulled the gun on Kira, yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
The first time you saw this?
Because
I would have thought, oh, what's wrong with Will Riker?
When was the Thomas Riker episode? Like season 7? Season 6?
Season 6. Season 6.
Which at that time would have been what? Season 2 of DS9 or season?
Season 1.
Okay.
My point is, it would be, for me anyway, I wouldn't have been. Episodes like that are just one-offs, and you never expect stuff like that to come back again.
It was still fairly fresh, though. We're talking maybe like a year or so removed. So I had a feeling it was. But I was watching a lot of Star Trek back at that time, too.
Yeah. Either way, so we got back. Golden Cot is in the briefing room, and he's being briefed by Odo and Sisko about what's happened. 9 years ago, a transporter accident created 2 William Rikers. One of them returned to his ship at the time, but the other was marooned on, whatever planet it was, and how the Enterprise discovered him, brought him back, and he took his middle name Thomas to differentiate himself from Commander Will Riker, and he was sent aboard the Starship Gandhi. Now, I was always curious about the Starship Gandhi because it's like, okay, that had to have been a science ship that had no weapons because it's very bad. It's kind of like the Starship Gandhi. It's like we're sending it to the front lines for the Dominion War. It's like,
not to mention the food replicators probably sucked.
But then Golden Cot gives a great line that he says, "This is a very entertaining story, but why am I listening to it?" Which I don't know. I just always love that. But then Sisko reveals the big kicker that they have reason to believe Thomas Riker is a member of the Maquis, and I gotta say. This, like, as soon as he reveals that, with the music, the performances, this is one of my favorite scenes from DS9.
Really?
I don't know why, because the way they talk about how, oh my God, you're telling me that the Maquis have their hands on probably the most heavily armed starship in this whole quadrant. They're going to want to send a fleet of Cardassian ships into the demilitarized zone, and they're going to use this as an excuse to, put an end to the Maquis. Like they're seriously considering the. It seems small, this whole thing, but they're examining the big picture, and I like that because Sisko says, "Look, if you want to send ships into the fleet, that's fine, but it's got to be a joint operation between Starfleet and Cardassia." And Dukat says, "Look, they're not going to believe your stories about transporter accidents. The Central Command is going to think that you wanted the Maquis to have this, and they're going to send fleets. You're going to send your own. Nerves are going to fray once they meet, and we're going to have a war on our hands." And it's like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's like I don't know. I just really like it because you can picture the idea that, oh my gosh, this small incident is going to lead to a war.
Yeah. Well, I like Golden Cot in this scene because the way he acts when he finds out what's happened, he's shocked and concerned, but he also realizes he's in a situation where he has a lot of power and Sisko is powerless. He has something over on Sisko. So he's got Mark Alamo is so great at playing Golden Cot, where he's like shocked and outraged, but you can hear this thing in his voice where he's like, "Oh, Sisko, you've really stepped into it this time." He's like looking at he's like, he's got the power. He hates Sisko, and he's got something over him. This is probably going to be good for Golden Cot's career. This is going to make me look good and make Starfleet look bad. He's shocked at the scenario, but you can tell he's kind of like reveling in it at the same time. Mm-hmm. His performance is so good.
It is, like, honestly, it's great. Now this is they say we've got to destroy the Defiant, and Sisko says, I want to disable it. not destroy it, and he's willing to go back to he's willing to go back to Cardassia with Gul Dukat to stop them, because he says we need to convince the Central Command about this. And Sisko says, "You can bring me." And then we start to learn a little bit about Sisko in this. He was in charge of the shipyard where the Defiant was built during those 3 years after Wolf 359.
Yeah, he mentioned that he helped design the Defiant, which I didn't remember. That kind of surprised me. Really? He did?
That did surprise me, but I think it was not initially established, or maybe it was, but Sisko initially was not set out for the command structure. I think he was actually previously an engineer, which is kind of like, okay, yeah, I think it was mentioned in an episode. I think it was the episode called Homefront, where he and Odo go back to Earth, and he meets that admiral, and I think he says, like, he was the one who got me into the command structure. So that's interesting. Like, Sisko has, like, some good engineering knowledge, and he, he not only was in charge of the shipyard, but he helped design it. And it's like that. It's really cool. But he says, I know her vulnerabilities and her weaknesses. And, so they agree. He's going to go back with Dukat to Cardassia, and we cut to the Defiant. Kira is kind of pissed off that she was tricked and used like this, but she doesn't, appreciate it. And I'm just kind of like, okay, why didn't Tom just put her in an escape pod and, like, leave a little Dear Nerys letter with her, and it's like, hey, sorry, this isn't going to work out.
Sometimes you need a hostage.
That was my thought too. It's kind of like, if things get too bad, he can use Kira as a hostage, because even though she isn't a Federation citizen, she's still part of the Bajoran militia and first officer on DS9.
Well, you keep her alive, they're less likely to destroy the Defiant later on.
Mm-hmm. But Kira is not interested in this mission of his at all. She says, you're going to have both the Cardassians and Starfleet looking for you. Do
you buy the fact that Thomas Riker joined up with the Maquis?
I kind of can, in a way.
Like, what personal stake would he have in fighting the Cardassians?
It's not so much a personal stake, but rather fighting for what he believes is right. Because a lot of people feel that the Federation has turned their back on these colonists. And would
Thomas Riker care about that?
Maybe Thomas Riker would, because maybe after being marooned on that planet, hey, I know what it's like to be abandoned by Starfleet and the Federation.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not saying it's bad or wrong. It's just it kind of comes out of left field, like Odo says in that one scene, like, oh, there were rumors he was talking politically about sympathies with the Maquis, and that's really the only backstory they give it. But I guess that's all you need.
You could look at it as like he was just looking for an identity for himself, and this is just kind of what he fell into. That the first cause that fell into his lap just happened to be the Maquis cause, and he's like, well,
he wanted his life. Maybe he feels inadequate to Will Riker, and he wants his life to. He wants to stand for something. He wants, he wants his death to mean something. He wants to do something, heroic. I don't know. It's fine.
So they lay in a course for the Cardassian border at Warp 8, and Riker says, the ship was built to fight. I think it's time she gets her chance. Which, I don't know, I kind of like that.
Yeah, good line.
So Sisko makes his way to Cardassia, and he says in his log entry that he's going against 20 years of Starfleet training because he's going to help an enemy hunt down one of their own ships. We get to the Cardassian command center, which I don't know. That set is just kind of like, you've just redressed one of your cargo bays, haven't you? But no, it's
TV
fine.
Production ain't cheap.
Well, no,
especially
for syndicated TV. Remember?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But from this control room, Dukat can monitor and control every Cardassian ship, outpost, and space station within their space. And then we are introduced to Coronis. Now, she is not... I didn't get the actress's name, but if she seemed familiar to you, and she did to me, she was played by the same actress who played Captain Rachel Garrett from yesterday's Enterprise.
Cool.
how yesterday's Enterprise of this episode.
Don't remind me. We're talking about good Trek now.
It all connects.
So Cornus is the observer from the Obsidian Order. The Obsidian Order, if you don't know, they are like the Romulan Tal Shiar. They are the secret police. Everybody kind of
like the FBI or the CIA kind of thing. Except in the Cardassian society, they actually have more power than the government in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah. And
is this the first time have we been introduced to the Obsidian Order a lot in Deep Space Nine at this point?
It'd been mentioned a few times. It was first mentioned, I think, in the season 2 episode, The Wire, because Garrick only appears once in season 1. And Odo mentions that the Obsidian Order are actually known to be even better than the Tal Shiar, and that there's some of a rumor like nobody has a spoonful of food without it being known about by the Order.
Yeah, and this episode is a good demonstration of the Obsidian Order and their place in Cardassian society, where they send her along as an envoy in this mission, and we have Gul Dukat, who works for the Central Command, but we see that she really has the power in this episode. Like when we find out that.
Well, yeah, we're going to find out. Don't worry, I'll get to it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying this is a good demonstration of how the Obsidian Order has information that the Central Government doesn't know. They can basically do whatever they want. The Central Command can't say anything about it. Where she really has more power than Dukat in this scene, even though she has like no official rank, really, right?
Yeah, that's right. She's just an observer, and she asks Cisco, "Okay, why don't you lend us some of your technical expertise and start briefing us about the defensive capabilities?" And Cisco mentions, "Look, there's something that I didn't say before, and nobody else really knows about this. The Defiant was equipped with I can't talk. It was equipped with a cloaking device on loan from the Romulans. Dukat didn't know about this, but Cornus did."
Right, yes.
And, Dukat is a bit upset that, why didn't you inform the Central Command? And Cornus just says, "Look, we figured that one cloaking device on a Federation ship was not a significant threat to Cardassia, so you didn't need to know."
Mm-hmm. She's great in this scene. She's really kind of sinister and mysterious, and the way she talks to Dukat. And Dukat is like, he's more commanding and strict, but you can tell she has all the power over him.
Well, yeah. What's great is that she never really raises her voice at all. She never shouts. Like he's the one who's getting upset and angry and losing his cool a bit, and he's the one who's supposed to be in charge. And like you realize, no. You think you're in charge, and that's what we want you to do. But just so you know,
order lets you think you're in charge.
Exactly. Cisco lets them know that look, in exchange for all our information on the Dominion, the Romulans gave us this cloaking device, but it's only to be used in the Gamma Quadrant. And Dukat agrees, like, look, the Maquis are not going to honor anything you have with the Romulans. But then we go back to season 1, and Cisco reveals episode 1 of season 3, and he says the Dominion were actually able to penetrate the cloak with the anti-proton beam. And at one point, Dukat says, "Well, there's no way to detect a ship under cloak." And it's like, what about using a tachyon scan like Data did?
When did Data? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, in Redemption Part 2, when he took command of the Sutherland.
Well, isn't that specifically because the Romulan ships used black holes as a propulsion drive? And that's how they were able to detect it?
Oh, maybe.
It's specifically Romulan ships you can do that with, because of their black hole drive, or whatever they call it.
Maybe, but I think at one point, I actually remember when they first encountered the Dominion, the Starship Odyssey said, like, our tachyon scans are negative. So it's like, maybe it can work for Romulans, and they just thought, look, just like, let's take every box and like exercise every option to see if we can detect something. Maybe. But they decide, okay, maybe we can use an anti-proton beam, but we don't have the specifications on how it works. So that's going to be difficult. Back to the Defiant, they're going to start their attack, but Kira's deciding, okay, look, I am not going to let this happen. And it's kind of dumb of them to leave Kira in a room with a replicator because it's like, look, she could probably replicate a phaser, or she could just, remember, she's a terrorist.
Yeah.
If she wants to get out of here, yes. Oh God, she is.
That's what I thought too. It's like, yeah, they left Kira alone. It's like, no, you should probably have her like tied up on the bridge.
Well, you gotta
behind
remember,
a force field.
There's only like 3 of them. They don't really know her all that well, and how good she is at all that shit.
Well, you think Thomas Riker would have done his research?
But I mean, they're kind of. There's only 3 of them in command of that warship, and they're kind of focused on other things. So I can understand them having a bit of lapse of judgment when it comes to something like that.
True.
Yeah. So in the command center, there's a perimeter alert, and it looks like the Defiant is ready to attack Outpost 47. But Cisco says, something's not right. Why aren't they cloaked? And he tells Dukat, listen, do not pull these ships off of the border. And he says, it's not the Defiant. They're using a false warp signature because I think he says like the phase resonance or whatever don't match the Defiant's warp signature or something like that.
Some sort of technobabble.
Yeah, a fake warp signature. That's what it is. And it's kind of like, okay, that's actually pretty clever. And as Dukat orders them break off the pursuit, the Defiant is scanned by... This is what I put. It's like Outpost 47 has detected the Defiant using their anti-proton beams. Like, oh, that was quick. You only discovered about the whole thing 10 minutes ago. So that's something about Cardassian resourcefulness.
No, I thought they decloaked and destroyed that other base.
They do initially, but he says they detected a cloaked ship with their anti-proton beam, and then the Defiant decloaks, and it's like the Defiant is attacking, and we've lost contact with Outpost 47. And it's like, oh dear. And then. Oh, I took notes because I'm a massive nerd. And then Cornus decides she's going to rub salt in the wound by congratulating Cisco. This is the words. She says, Commander Cisco, you should be commended. I only wish we had someone with such keen tactical instincts who could have prevented this invasion of our territory. I found out there was a deleted scene where she says, I'm not going to mention any incompetent's name, but his initials are Gul Dukat.
Yeah, she's like openly mocking him, which again just goes to show the relationship between Central Command and the Obsidian Order. They're like the only Cardassians who don't fear the Central Command.
Yeah, and Dukat just gives this look like, I'm never going to cheat on my wife with you again. So they get past the security perimeter. This is back to the Defiant. They're out of the sensor range. But Thomas says, look, we'll just shift our cloak's phase frequency so that we can't be detected by the anti-proton scan. But all of a sudden, there's a little bit of an explosion. They've lost main power and their cloak because 2 plasma conduits have blown out in the crew quarters. And Thomas says, Major Kira's been busy. She's cooking up a storm in there. Okay, maybe not that, but he just says she's been busy and she almost got herself killed. Because it's a plasma relay. Like that's not something you tinker around with lightly. But he says, you know what? Why are you so eager to save the Cardassians? And like Starfleet, and Thomas says Starfleet isn't doing anything about it. Which I think that's what it comes back to. Like one of the motivations, he honestly thinks that I know what it's like to be abandoned by Starfleet. But that's just my own opinion.
Fair enough. I didn't make that connection while watching it, but you're right. That makes sense.
And either way, so they go to the bridge, and then we get it's a quiet scene on Cardassia, but like they report, all these areas of space have been scanned, and nobody can detect the Defiant. But it looks like Gul Dukat's not paying attention because it turns out this is his son's 11th birthday. And he had promised him that he was going to take him to the amusement center in Lacarian City. And Cisco says, it's a nice moment where they kind of relate. It's like, they just don't understand at that age. But you hope that one day when they're older, they'll say, now I get it. Now I understand why he did what he did. But Dukat says differently. He says, no, when my son looks back on this day, he's not going to understand. He's going to look back with hatred because a Starfleet officer stole a Starfleet vessel and attacked his home. He's not going to look back with understanding, but with hatred. and that's sad. It's kind of like, oh God, no, it's a really great scene.
I also got the sense that Ducat was saying that not just because that's how he's going to see it, but that's how I'm going to make him see it. I got the sense of
Maybe.
that. Like, because of course, Gold Ducat's going to raise his son to hate the Federation.
Yes.
So I felt like he was saying to Sisko, like, that's the event that I'm going to tell.
Yeah, he's going to spin it the way he wants it to.
Yes, that's how I took it.
Yeah, and because Gul Dukat has done that so many times. Like he is a guy who can make lemons out of lemonade, or make lemonade out of lemons. Jesus,
yeah.
I've got Aromatic syndrome. So they've been able to repair the damage on the Defiant, but it looks like there is a neutrino leak, and the Cardassians might be able to detect it even through the cloak. But Riker says that they're going to take that chance, and they lay in a course, and he's trying to throw the Cardassians off balance. And Kira says, okay, so why are you going here? And it turns out that Thomas says, look, there are some shifting loyalties in the Cardassian government, and some people are unsatisfied with the Federation Treaty and are doing whatever they can to ruin it. They've gotten their hands on a intelligence report that is mentioning a secret military buildup in the Orias system, and that they could be ready. It's a secret buildup that the Central Command is not aware of, and that they could be getting ready for an invasion. The thing is, this is actually going to pay off much later in the series, but we'll get back. Yeah, but Kira tells him at one point, "Look, you're not a very good terrorist. Terrorists are just going to go after whatever they can. They're not going to try and find secret bases that may or may not exist based off of intelligence reports." And she criticizes him for acting too much like a Starfleet officer, and instead of actually a terrorist who wants to hurt Cardassians. I think she is trying to goad him out of like this mission, and he's just not interested. He's not having it.
I don't see Thomas Riker as wanting to hurt Cardassians so much as hurt the Federation.
I don't even see it as hurting the Federation, but rather hurting the Cardassian government.
But he has no grudge against the Cardassian government. His complaint is more with how Starfleet handled the treaty and the colony.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But either way, they've been doing an examination back on Cardassia. They do an examination of how the ships are deployed, and Sisko says, well, they're moving away. It looks like they're trying to move all your ships away from this sector in the Orias system. And Ducat says, well, there's Orias 3, but there's nothing there. It's uninhabited. Nobody's there. And he says, why did Sisko suggest send one ship to Orias 3 just in case? And as Ducat gives the order, Cornus interrupts and says, no, you are not going to send any ships to the Orias system.
Suspicious.
And and what's funny is that Ducat remembers, hey, I've got a set of balls, I'm going to use them.
Yeah.
He says, you have no authority here. You're just an observer. So observe. And Cornus reveals, hey, that system is under the Obsidian Order's control. You're not going to go there because it's classified. And Ducat, thankfully, he's like, no, you can file a complaint if you want. But Cornus is starting to raise the stakes, and she says, any warship sent into the Orias system will be destroyed. Implying this is a secret big enough that she is willing to fire on and destroy another Cardassian. Yeah. No, it's like, okay, so what is going on here? It's great. It's a great scene. We cut back after commercial. Ducat isn't getting any answers at all. Sisko says, well, who does the order answer to? And they answer to the political authority of the Tapa Council. Oh God, I'm stuttering. But we're going to hear about the Tapa Council in season 4, Way of the Warrior. But there's not much information they can get. But they are detecting the unusual neutrino signature and also they're using anti-proton beams. They think that they found the Defiant. But Kira says, look, you've got, we're outnumbered. We've got too many ships behind us, and like even if we can get to Arias, who knows what's there for us? And back on Cardassia, Dukat is telling Cornus, hey, when you file this complaint, be sure to mention the fact that I could have prevented all of this if you hadn't interfered and let me just send one warship. But Cornus is confident they are not going to reach Arias, and because 3 more ships are coming towards the Defiant. So the Defiant has got like 7 or 8 warships behind them, 3 in front of them, and these warships that are heading towards them are not under the control of the government. They're under the control of the Obsidian Order. But the Obsidian Order is not allowed to have any ships.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, technically, yeah. And Dukat says if they were military ships, I would know about them, but but if they aren't, they're the orders, and you're not allowed to have any. It's explicitly forbidden, he says. From having military equipment of any kind, but then it's like, you know what? They are the secret police. And Cornus, she doesn't say anything. She just gives a smile and she walks off.
Dukat kind of ends up looking like a fool in this scene. Like, we know the Obsidian Order is secretive, but like he should know, right? He should know that they have a lot of unofficial power and everything they do is under the table and like.
But one
comes
thing,
off like an idiot.
But he's also somebody who's kind of
idealistic.
There's that, and he's like, by the book, by Cardassia, for Cardassia.
Yes.
So he refuses to believe that people are going to go against what is in the Cardassian charter or whatever the body of government is there, that they're going to go against that. He thinks everything's supposed to be done by the rule, and he doesn't see that he's being duped and the government's being duped.
He's a patriot.
And I still think he's a little overly naive.
And that's the thing about patriots. They are sometimes overly naive.
And let's not forget, he's also very arrogant. He's corrupt in a lot of ways. He's narcissistic. He's more about his ego and his career sometimes than he is for Cardassia. So maybe he's so distracted by those other things that he really doesn't see what's going on. Right?
He can't see it. He does it to other people, but he can't see it being done to him.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
Arrogance. And so back on Cardassia, Cisco says, like, look, if you want to figure out what's going on in the Arias sector, you have to get the sensor information from the Defiant. You won't get that if you destroy it. The only way we can get it is if you give Riker a chance to surrender. They've scanned the system. They'll be able to tell you what was in there, but you have got to not only not destroy the Defiant, but release Major Kira and the Maquis and Riker. And Dukat's like, look, I can't let these terrorists walk away from an attempted invasion. And he says, fine, I'll let you have the Maquis, the Defiant, but you can't have Riker. He's leading this mission. I have to bring Central Command something. Otherwise, I'm just this is going to end up doing damage to me. Mm-hmm. And, I want that information on Arias. Cisco agrees, but he says only if you take the death penalty off the table, because you Cardassians already have the verdict and the sentence before the trial even begins. So Dukat makes a quick call to the Ministry of Justice. The Defiant is hailed by Cardassia Prime, and they're ordered, look, stand down, and this is what will happen. There's a brief firefight, but it's not as big as you would expect. It feels kind of rushed. Mm-hmm. But either way, Cisco and Dukat explain, look, if you surrender, your lives will be spared, but Riker is going to serve a life sentence in a labor camp. And he agrees. They rush towards the Cardassian fleets controlled by the military. They protect themselves. But the Cardassian cruiser extend their shields around the Defiant to protect them from the the Obsidian Order ships. That's who it is. And basically, Riker says, all right, look, I'm surrendering. I don't know. I would have expected the Maquis to be like, no, we can't surrender. Like, they're going to kill you, Tom. Like, we're doing this for you. But they're all just kind of like, okay, yeah, if you're going to do this, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely see later in the series of Maquis behavior. They're more willing to die for their cause than these people. They don't take the capture lightly. Like,
But maybe that's because they've been hanging out with Riker so long. They've kind of he found people with similar in the Maquis with similar personalities in him that aren't as ruthless but more duty driven. Like kind of fringe Maquis in a way where they haven't been engrossed in it as long as the other ones.
Maybe these ones are people who grew up on the borders but also went to Starfleet Academy.
Or for all we know, they're not even like actual Maquis who live within the borders. They could be just like Thomas Riker, Federation people, former officers or crewmen that are just sympathetic to the Maquis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly is possible.
I really like in this episode how they don't just portray Thomas Riker as the evil William Riker.
Mm-hmm.
Like they give him a chance to surrender and save his crew, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take the responsibility, and I'll spend the rest of my life in a labor camp if you let them go." Like you would think that the trope of the evil clone would be like, "No, I'm going to get us all killed to accomplish our goal." But like, no, he's William Riker at heart. He's not evil.
He's actually
different.
The good Will Riker, not the evil Riker, because he has less of the fears.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Okay. So he tells Kira, look, it's your responsibility to get these people back to the Federation and make sure that they get a fair trial. And she gives him his word. But then, unfortunately, Bubs, actually, Kira promises, like, look, we're going to get you out of that prison camp. It's like,
I don't think so.
Yeah, wink. But then Riker shows that he really is the evil Will Riker because he gives Kira a kiss without her consent.
Well, he's going to prison camp, so what does he care at this point, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's the last piece he's going to ever get, so...
He's going to get a lot of spooning in that labor camp. So, unfortunately, Kira, sits in the chair and says, lay in a course.
That's right.
Exactly. So they lay in a course for the Federation Warp 8, and the episode just kind of ends. I almost feel like this should have been a two-parter, if you will.
Or at least like an epilogue at the end or something.
Yeah,
I didn't have a problem with it. There's nothing left to do. They go home. That's fine with me.
And that's roll credits.
Yeah, that's it.
I will say I liked this episode. It was decent. It was thrilling at times. There's a lot of technobabble, a lot of how we're going to find the ship, and there's a little bit of political intrigue and stuff. But when it boils down to it, it's really just the TNG episode, the Wounded. It's a Starfleet officer steals a ship and goes into Cardassian territory to destroy a secret base, and then a Cardassian, played by Mark Alamo, has to team up with the Starfleet captain to go and find them. It's pretty much The Wounded, just not as good because The Wounded's amazing. But, it's not bad. I liked it.
I liked it because it gives more insight to the political dynamic between the Central Command, and you're learning more now about the Obsidian Order. It also sets the table and sets the seeds for a future invasion that's coming up, and we're going to realize that this building up of the Obsidian Order ships and then that secret base leads to something a lot grander when it comes to the combined Tal Shiar Obsidian Order invasion incursion into the Gamma Quadrant in an attempt to destroy the Founder's homeworld.
Yep.
So,
that's the best thing about Deep Space Nine. Everything, the setups and the payoffs and the long-term storytelling.
Well, and that's the beauty of watching this again in hindsight, because, if you just watched that for the first time, you'd be like, all right, it was an okay episode, but, in the end, it doesn't really mean anything. But after you've watched DS9 through a couple times, you realize this is leading to something much bigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of story threads started, and everything pays off.
So in that respect, I think it's a great
episode. Yeah, no, I think it's a good episode. One thing that I think makes me a bit sad, they don't ever follow up with Thomas Riker.
No, we never see him again.
I actually found out when they sent out a press release to freelance writers for the making of season 4, and they specifically said one of the things that they did not want to revisit was Thomas Riker. And I just thought, oh, why not?
Yeah, there could be potential there.
Yeah.
Where do you go with him, though?
I don't know. I would never thought of him joining the Maquis.
true. I mean,
and that's maybe give him the death that he would have wanted.
I think it's a good way to kind of keep the door open for Jonathan Frakes if he ever wanted to come back, or if they ever needed to go to the well of, hey, we need to dip back into the next generation characters because, ratings are dropping a little bit, and then they ended up getting Worf as a permanent member of the cast, so they kind of didn't really have to dip back into the Thomas Riker character well again. So maybe that could be a good reason as to why they never went back to him.
Maybe.
He could have came up again maybe during the
Dominion War?
The Dominion War, during the invasion of Cardassia. Maybe he helped lead an overthrow of the prison colony he was in, and his rebels joined with Kira's rebels or something like that. I'm not saying you need to bring him back.
When the Klingons invaded Cardassia and the Maquis kind of rose up again, they could have freed him.
Yeah.
And then, he could have led a rebellion of Maquis against the Cardassians until, the Dominion came and wiped them all out. But
there were places to go. I don't think you need to bring him back. But
I think maybe one of the reasons they didn't is because of the war factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't want to overload it with
TNG. Yeah.
They've got Worf and they've got O'Brien, so we don't need a cast reunion. Fair enough.
Plus, wasn't Frakes doing that?
Beyond Belief?
Yeah, that show.
Maybe. Yeah, probably around this time.
But it's nice to see Jonathan Frakes. It's nice to see, even though it's not Will Riker. It's cool to see a cameo now and then.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's Defiant. I don't know why I put that episode in the bag. I'm pretty sure that was one of my favorites.
It's been so long since we filled the bag. Yeah. I don't even remember who put what in.
Who knows?
I remember just a few of them.
So that's the end of our Trek-tastic episode, where we talked about some good Trek, we talked about some crap Trek. Now, because I'm wanting to review every episode of Picard, I think maybe for the next few episodes, if we do 2 episodes each, we're going to be talking about this for a long time, but maybe the next time we'll try to do something else that's not Star Trek related.
Or James Bond related.
Or James Bond related. We'll do something else at the same time. Because if I have to watch this goddamn show, I'm definitely going to review every episode for the show, because that's the only way to make it not so painful.
Exactly.
How about we review something not James Bond related or Star Trek related? How about we review something Star Wars related? We've never done that.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Aren't they doing a Obi-Wan show now?
I have
Obi-Wan show, isn't there?
Yep. I haven't even watched the trailer for it. I don't care.
The only thing I'll ever watch of Star Wars again is the holiday special. I'll watch the holiday special.
I've watched the 2 seasons of Mandalorian.
Mandalorian.
They were all right. I don't really know if I'm going to bother with Book of Boba Fett. I don't care that much, and I don't give a flying fuck about an Obi-Wan show. I never even saw the 3rd Star Wars movie, so I don't even care.
Oh, lucky you.
I'm waiting for the Sebulba standalone series. We're going to get to see his rise up in the pod racing scene. And I need to know where he got his first pod, damn it.
Oh, I didn't watch Solo either.
No, God, no.
No interest.
I haven't watched literally anything since Rogue One. There you go.
Oh, wow.
And I will not. I'm done. Anyway, that's it for this episode. We're almost at 3 hours now, so if you've made it this far, thanks for listening. You're a real trooper. We love you, and we hope to see you again soon.